All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for day 3 of the Northeast Prescribed Fire Science and Management Workshop. Today, we will be hearing from all of you about what is happening in each of the 20 states within our combined Northeast and Midwest region, as well as from our neighbors to the north, who of course are quite active right now with far too much wildland fire. But before we begin, I wanted to start with a few housekeeping items. First of all, thank you to our sponsors, the Wisconsin and the Pennsylvania Prescribed Fire Councils. My name is Neil Gifford. I'm the Conservation Director with the Albany Pine Bush Preserve Commission and a community representative with the North Atlantic Fire Science Exchange. Throughout the day, we will be taking breaks, but as we get started, as you all join the webinar, if you could please introduce yourselves and your location in the chat, that would be great, just so that we get a chance to get a snapshot of who all is joining us today. We're all a little isolated in this particular webinar format, so it'd be great to see the chat and see where everyone's from. Throughout the course of the day, if you have questions for our speakers, we'll try and take them if we have time. Remember to use the Q&A feature, not the chat, for your questions. I'll try and monitor both. There will be a questionnaire at the end of the session today that will pop up, and your input is really critical to helping us make this workshop the best that it can be. We are also always looking for new steering committee members. We're a relatively small group, so if you are happy with what you are seeing that we've been presenting now for 4 years as part of this workshop, or if more importantly, if you're not happy and you have ideas on how we can make it better, we'd love to have you join the team. And the workshop program is being recorded, and that recording will be posted to the workshop website at the end of the week. And with that, we are going to transition to our first speaker. And we're going to start actually with our neighbors to the north, with Hillary Winstanley from Canada. And Michael, I know you're there. If you could bring up that first slide, that would be fantastic. And every speaker has 8 minutes. I will be muting myself and turning my camera off. If my camera comes on, that means you have a minute left. Thank you for joining us. And Hillary, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Hopefully, okay, thanks, Neil. So like Neil mentioned, my name's Hillary Winstanley. I am with the Wildfire Resilience Consortium of Canada as a regional coordinator. So I'm here today to share a little bit about WRCC. We're a brand new organization that was just formed in the last, I guess, 8 or 9 months. So I'm just going to kind of touch on who we are and what we're doing, and I'll try to get through it in 8 minutes because this is a longer deck, so I'll be quick. With that, maybe we'll go to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, so just a quick overview of what we'll be covering. I'm going to talk about WRCC, where we come from, and the 9 primary goals of WRCC, because I think that context is important. And then I'm going to touch on where I come from in the organization, the Knowledge Mobilization Corps, and the place-based regional networks, because I think that will resonate with some of the folks on the call. Next slide, please. And perfect, thank you. So to give some context on where WRCC comes from, I wanted to quickly touch on the current climate of wildland fire management in Canada that really ignited the need for a body like WRCC to exist. So none of this is probably going to be news to anyone in the room. It's probably more helpful for folks that are new to wildfire or not in a wildfire adjacent space, but it's good context setting. So currently, there's a lot of wildland fire management challenges in Canada, and it demands a interdisciplinary whole of society approach. So by that, we mean that we know that wildland fire management is not the responsibility of one organization or even a couple of organizations in Canada, and it's beyond suppression. So we really need to move into a model where many partners and stakeholders across lots of different disciplines are able to contribute to effective wildland fire management. Like you folks south of us down in the States, we're seeing increasingly intense fire in Canada that are having wide-ranging impacts beyond the area burn. So there's lots of adverse impacts coming from fire. We're talking smoke effects, air quality, physical and mental health of vulnerable populations, a lot of trauma, financial costs. So that's a huge challenge that we're facing. A lot of times in the wildland fire ecosystem, there are critical players that are not involved in decision making, or that is a fragmented type of approach. So people work against each other, operate independently. Some people don't know what others are doing. So we just want to make sure all of those perspectives and people have a chance to come to the table to contribute. So lots of different challenges, but I guess the main take home being that these challenges are bigger than just one group to address. Next slide, please. So enter the WRCC. So we are a nonprofit organization that was launched last fall with the intention of bridging some of these gaps by bringing people together, acting as a connector, and being a bit of a hub for wildland fire management in Canada. So we are a nonprofit that was made possible through funding by the federal government. So we're on a 3-year term with the federal government right now. And so we just hired staff and came on in October, November. So very, very new. And like I said, we have funding until early 2028 as of now, but we are seeking additional funding to keep operating. So we have a couple of goals, which I'll get into a little more, but we're really trying to reduce that siloing effect, enhance connectivity, and share knowledge more broadly. So again, this is our vision. So we really want to provide all Canadians with access to wildland fire knowledge and to enhance overall wildfire resilience in Canada. And to do that, we want to focus on engaging, connecting, and accelerating. So you'll see those terms used a lot in our strategy and in our materials. And again, it really just comes down to wanting to connect players to collaborate, share knowledge, elevate the good work people are doing, and promote shared responsibility to increase cohesion in this space. Next slide, please. So this is just a very kind of quick overview of the partners who were instrumental in getting the WRCC formed. So we have some really, really good representation on our board of directors, including folks that come from disaster prevention, fire safety, fire science, sustainable forestry. And so these are all people that were, or organizations that were heavily involved in forming WRCC and putting in that application for funding to the federal government. And so they still have a role in our organization as members of the board. Next slide, please. Okay, so the actual functionality of the WRCC can be distilled very roughly into 3 cores. So we have the Indigenous Fire Stewardship Core, which is really about promoting self-determined long-term land management that integrates Indigenous knowledge with wildfire management and really promoting cultural fire, cultural burning. We have the Knowledge Mobilization Core, which is where I come from, and that's really the hub that's focused on accelerating knowledge sharing and mobilization. So wanting to connect folks, bring knowledge to the forefront. And this, I would say, has been the most active core that has been functioning since we came into kind of effect in late last year. And then one of our newer cores is the Tech and Innovation Core, which is really focused on accelerating the uptake of technological innovations by linking innovators and funders and end users. So that's one of the cores that isn't as well developed as the others. Okay, so if you want to go to the next slide there, perfect. So again, you're going to see these are the 9 goals of WRCC. I've touched on them a little bit, so we don't have to spend too much time on them, but essentially we have the engage, connect, and accelerate goals. So we'll start with engage. So the first priority being sharing WRCC in Canada and the wildland fire ecosystem and beyond with folks like yourselves, so we can involve a diversity of participants in our work and show that we're here and we're trying to do some of this connection on the ground. Priority 2, solidifying relationships with partners. So we're trying to, at this point, engage with folks to hear what challenges they're facing in wildland fire management, what solutions they may have to bring to the table, just getting kind of feedback from folks all across Canada on what that looks like and what those underrepresented views and audiences may be. And priority 3, looking to support and elevate wildfire initiatives of Indigenous people and organizations. So we are working with the National Indigenous Fire Safety Council and others in Canada to support Indigenous initiatives in wildfire research and cultural burning, and trying to accelerate the use of Indigenous and local knowledge and practices. So I would say since last fall, this has been where we spent most of our efforts in this engage phase. And now we're moving into the connection phase. So right now, there is a lot of effort going into launching an online platform that's going to be kind of a hub, a one-stop shop for all things wildland fire management in Canada. So we're hoping that that can house resources and knowledge exchange products and kind of like I said, a one-stop shop for everything wildland fire in Canada. We're hoping to launch that this fall. It's in development right now. So look out for that, because I do think we would love to host resources and have information on there that is not just from within Canada. Obviously there's lots of overlap between what's going on in the States and what's going on with Canada. So keep an eye out for that. Establish place-based networks across Canada, which we've done. We actually have 7, which I'll show on a map in a couple of slides, but we have, I'll go into more detail on that, but we have accomplished that. And priority 6, create opportunities for connection. So we're doing a little bit of that right now. We're trying to hold events, have workshops, knowledge exchange opportunities for folks to come together to hear about funding, talk about co-designing projects, etc. So that work has started to begin as well.
Thanks, Hillary. Unfortunately, believe it or not, that is 8 minutes.
Okay.
I know. I can't believe it myself, but that is what the stopwatch is telling me. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'll share the deck and share my contact, and I can touch base with folks if they have questions.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
And I was remiss in mentioning that while Canada does not have an official state bird or a national bird, their unofficial bird is the Canada jay, of course. And the state tree or the national tree is maples, all maples. But next up we have Canada. We have Chris Martin from Connecticut, where they celebrate the white oak and the American robin. Chris, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Neil. It's a great pleasure to be with you all here today. We can just jump right on to the first slide. It'll be a real quick overview of Connecticut and all that we do here. We do annual burns, prescribed burns each spring mostly. Then we try to do some follow-up in the fall. And we're always overly ambitious. And these are planned for state wildlife management areas, state forests, some of our grassland habitat areas. We had 9 planned for 2026, and we've completed 5 so far. We had a very wet spring, which really posed some challenges to get the proper ignition conditions on the ground. We'll go to the next. So just a real quick backdrop on all the rules and regulations behind open burning and prescribed burns in Connecticut. We are a state that really needs high fire danger to have a good result on the ground. And so what we do, we pursue a special burning permit through our commissioner's office that allows ignition on high fire danger days with an approved and reviewed burn plan. There's an open burn permit statute in Connecticut that does tie directly into our air quality index. We are a non-attainment state for air quality. And so we really need to have, good lift, clear skies when we have ignitions. And so there's 2 things that we really take into account: the day's air quality, but then also the fire danger. We're also very focused on community engagement with our prescribed burns. We will notify local fire departments and dispatch centers as we're doing the planning process, invite them to weigh in, invite them to participate. And then as we get closer to the day of ignition, we will reach out and communicate again. And then certainly usually 24 hours is our time frame as far as like go, no go, and we'll communicate a 3rd time. We're also, we like to highlight the fact that our indigenous populations did this practice for millennia, and much of Connecticut's landscape upon European settlement was indeed influenced by purposely set wildfire for hunting purposes and understory management. We highlight that in our general press release and make sure that folks understand the reason why we are sending smoke up into the air. You can imagine Connecticut, very heavily populated. You send up a smoke column a few hundred feet in the air and everyone notices. So we're sure to make sure the word is out early. And then also, we have had some challenges, and I am curious if maybe in the chat or later on, if people are seeing more and more folks showing up, the public showing up at these fires. And then, though it hasn't happened just yet, but we're anticipating maybe some drone incursions happening, and we're going to be deliberating on that a little bit more as we plan for 2027. Next slide. So again, our focus is on invasive plant control, grassland habitat management, warm grasses in particular. And then, we have a real challenge in Connecticut with deer population and invasive plants on getting proper oak regeneration. And so some of our burns are within state forests. They'll cover large areas, and they're basically to, we do a low intensity fire. We can cut back on the black birch and red maple regeneration, which is always very prominent. And the oak regeneration gives it a chance. A little thicker barked tree can withstand some light flame activity. And we'll go to the next one. So we have some innovative partnerships, and we actually have some growing interest in Connecticut on prescribed burns, particularly in the land trust community. There's been several webinars and people joining us on the days of the burn, observing and learning. And then there are some contractors in the area that are engaging with land trusts. Land trusts, historically in Connecticut have been kind of a hands-off group as far as actively managing their forest health for their holdings. But there is growing awareness and concern that really intervention is necessary, especially when it comes to invasive plants. And we find that, prescribed burn is a great solution to address that threat. We also we would like to see more of it, but we do see some fire departments joining us on the day of the burns. The challenge is these areas are in rural areas of Connecticut that are serviced by volunteer fire departments, and therefore, most of these men and women are working during the day, and will respond to emergencies. But for them to take time out for work for training is a challenge. We rarely do these on a weekend. But sometimes we can pull that off and we'll get greater participation during those times. And then more recently, we've had our Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security becoming more familiar with our practices. This is on account of 2024 in Connecticut. We had probably our first wildfire emergency, maybe in more than 50 years plus. Over 221 starts in 30 days. Which was followed by the driest September and October in Connecticut's recorded history. Ironically, that August of 2024, areas of the state received 12 to 14 inches of rain within 24 hours, causing massive destruction to infrastructure. Those same areas 30 days later were burning. So just the pendulum had swung from one end of extreme to other in Connecticut in 2024. So awareness of our changing climate, awareness of these extremes are becoming, broadly, at a broader level, appreciated and concerned. And we're receiving some great support from some sister agencies in wildfire management in Connecticut. All right. I think that was it. Was there another slide? Yeah, so just to wrap up, we're very fastidious on training. We want to get our staff and our team members out into the field on wildfire, and one of the best ways to do that is to have these prescribed burns. It really shakes the dust off our equipment, makes sure everything's working in a controlled manner, and it prepares us to frankly what we're doing today. We have a crew coming back from Oregon. This weekend, we've sent interagency crew up to Quebec early last week. And as we speak right now, we have an engine en route to Minnesota. So there's a lot of not typically a lot of fire in Connecticut. But these prescribed burns really give the boots on the ground some practical experience. So when we do deploy, they are turnkey and they are ready to fulfill any mission that comes their way.
Thank you, Chris. That was great, and man, you were right on time. So appreciate that. Appreciate that very much. Well played, sir. Next up, was that? Are those? Do you have more slides? You still have?
Well, there was a couple of brief, but that's just the social media concern, which I mentioned earlier, and how we manage that with people showing up that we don't expect, and then what's the cost benefit analysis, I guess, or what's the pros and cons of is it too much outreach, not enough outreach? These are questions we're kind of wrestling with to make sure we have a safe place, when we're burning, and no one just shows up in the middle of the fire.
Right. Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. Next up, we have the state of Delaware. We have Natasha Wetzel. And in Delaware, the state tree is the American holly, and their state bird is very interesting. Holly, I don't know if you know it. It is the blue hen chicken. And interestingly, yours is not the only state that where a domesticated bird is the state bird, which I thought was interesting. But there you go. You have 8 minutes. Thanks for joining us, Natasha.
All right. Thanks, Neil. Good morning, everyone. My name is Natasha Wetzel. I'm the prescribed fire manager for the Nature Conservancy in Delaware and Pennsylvania. And I'm also the vice chair of the Delaware Prescribed Fire Council. So today I'm going to share some about the work of the Delaware Prescribed Fire Council, and then I'll highlight some of our prescribed fire accomplishments from this past year. So to provide some context here, the Delaware Prescribed Fire Council was formed in 2024. So we're new, but we've come a long way in a short amount of time. So across the state, we were seeing a growing interest in prescribed fire, along with an increase in the number of acres that were being burned by the agencies and organizations conducting this work across the state. Certainly an encouraging trend, but it also started to highlight some of the significant challenges that are a little unique to Delaware that affect our ability to expand this work across the state. So some of those limitations are Delaware does not currently have a right to burn law or prescribed fire legislation. We are a strict liability state, and our prescribed fire approvals, they will not refer to them as permits, are issued by the Division of Air Quality, and not our forestry agency. So, given these limitations and the shared concern about sustaining and growing prescribed fire across the state, we had representatives from multiple organizations come together to form this council, and you can read our mission statement up on the slide there. Earlier this year, we finalized a prescribed fire support letter that I also have posted up there, just a snippet of it. It's a little bit longer than what you're seeing. And that is a letter that we are actively sharing with the public and state officials to help build awareness and support for prescribed fire in Delaware. And maybe down the line, we can get some legislation going. And I'm also excited to share that, the council is making some significant progress organizationally. Just last week, we actually signed with an attorney to move forward with our nonprofit formation, 501c3. So we'll be looking forward to that in the coming year. Next slide. All right, so starting last year, the council began hosting Learn and Burn events. These are free and open to the public. Another one of our strategies for building awareness for prescribed fire across the state. So these events are combining classroom style presentations with these live prescribed fire demonstrations, giving those participants the science behind the fire and the opportunity to see in practice. We try to cover a wide range of topics, of course, state regulations and liability, but what of our wildlife and habitat benefits, burn planning, fire weather, smoke management, equipment, the whole gamut that goes into prescribed fire. Unfortunately, the past 2 years we've had these, the weather has not cooperated for the live fire portion of it. We've either had a foot of snow on the ground or a downpour. But we are planning to do one of these again next year, and we are currently looking at other opportunities and backup options to ensure that our attendees do at some point have an opportunity to come out and see this live fire demonstration, potentially on an active state burn or something like that. And expending these educational outreach opportunities is another reason that our council is pursuing that 501c3 status. Potentially that's going to give our council some more protections, the folks on it, and potentially maybe down the line we could look at some insurance or something like that. So, all right, next slide. All right, so I'll wrap up by sharing some of Delaware's prescribed fire numbers for the past couple of years. And so last year we were able to across the state with the different partners. You'll see those logos on the right-hand side of the screen, mainly made up of us, a bunch of land trusts, state government, and then federal as well. So 32 burns in 2025, covering 748 acres. And then so far this year, we've pulled off 31 prescribed burns across 510 acres. We were a little challenged this year. I think, again, we had these frigid snow events that were unusual. And I think the first burn we were able to get done in the state this year was March 10th, and that's probably 3 to 4 weeks behind when we usually would want to get started. And then it went from being, as people probably know, it got dry pretty quick this past year in some areas, specifically down in our Mid-Atlantic area. And so we had to wrap up burning by April 15th this year. So very short window this spring. I think we knocked out a pretty decent amount for what we had. And hopefully this fall we can get some better, some good fall conditions and add some of that on, add some more acres on this fall. But, as you can see on that map there, these are some of the, locations that we're touching down across the state, making some good ground. And I'll just close by saying, that I think our council's greatest strength is certainly the people behind it here. And we're really fortunate to have engaged members and directors representing organizations from across the state, committed to advancing this work that we're doing, and our shared conservation goals. So I think that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. That was fantastic. Right. Next up, we have Brittany Balmer from Illinois, where the state tree is the white oak and the state bird is the cardinal.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning,
my name is Brittany Balmer. I work for the Forest Preserves of Cook County, and I'm also the secretary of the Illinois Prescribed Fire Council. Really happy to be here today to provide you all with some updates on what the council has been up to over the past year, as well as where we're headed. I've probably got far too much information on these slides than we have time to go over, but I'll do my best to hit the highlights here. Starting off with data. So one of the priorities of the Fire Council has been to revisit the Illinois Fire Needs Assessment. For some context, the Fire Needs Assessment was originally drafted back in 2015. It helped identify barriers to increasing prescribed fire across Illinois, as well as established a baseline for measuring our progress. So we know how far we have to go, how far we've come, things like that. Over the past 10 years, we've been collecting and publishing burn data from across the state, and we've been making it publicly available on our Illinois Prescribed Fires Accomplished Map, which is available on our website. So many thanks to the agencies and other landowners for handing over their burn data every year. And if anyone isn't already sending us their maps or their KMZs, please feel free to reach out. So anyway, today we've logged over, back one slide. Thank you. So to date, we've logged over 11,000 burns, accounting for over 500,000 acres. That gives us a much clearer picture of how prescribed fire is actually changing across the state and where our efforts should be focused. The good news is that prescribed fire activity has continued to grow across the state. Since 2015, the number of acres burned annually in Illinois has increased from an average of around 46,000 acres to more than 70,000 acres each year, which is really great. That's a substantial increase and reflects a tremendous amount of work by practitioners across the state. Next slide, please. However, when we dig a little deeper into the data, the story becomes a little more nuanced. 10 organizations account for more than 90% of all reported acres burned statewide. And even more importantly, most of the upward trend is being driven by our largest prescribed fire programs, particularly the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, the U.S. Forest Service, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. When we separate organizations by annual acreage, even more patterns emerge. Organizations averaging under 3,000 acres annually have remained remarkably consistent over the past decade. In other words, these programs are maintaining their prescribed fire efforts, but collectively they aren't really showing the same level of growth as our largest agencies. So what this suggests is that we've made progress statewide, but we've also become increasingly dependent on a relatively small number of large programs to drive our overall increases in acres burned. So as we update our fire needs assessment, one important question has become, how do we help more organizations grow their capacity and not just maintain it? This can include access to training, equipment, staffing, liability, as well as opportunities for new practitioners to safely expand their programs. This is all stuff we're looking at, but having this data really helps us see the full picture so we can plan our next steps. Next slide, please. So obviously addressing those barriers won't be easy. To that end, the council is also looking to its future and continuing to strengthen our own capacity. One major initiative that we've made some progress on is establishing a full-time paid executive director position. A dedicated executive director will allow the council to better coordinate statewide activities, pursue funding opportunities, as well as expand outreach and education and provide sustained leadership beyond what our council of directors can accomplish as volunteers alone. We've made some major headway on this over the past year. We've got a job description, we've got a fiscal agent to handle payroll and insurance, things like that. And we're nearly there as far as securing seed money to fund the position over the next 3 years. So ultimately, our goal is to have the position posted in late 2026 or early 2027. Next slide, please. The council also continues to monitor several legislative initiatives surrounding prescribed fire policy. There are presently 2 bills that have been introduced in the state of Illinois that seek to establish a pilot program for a prescribed fire liability fund. The intention behind this is to replicate some other programs enacted in several Western states, including Washington, Oregon, California, things like that. And the intention here is to try and mitigate the financial risk associated with prescribed fire and make insurance more affordable to practitioners across the state. So currently we have 3 sponsors and a good amount of momentum behind this. So we're hopeful this will be taken up in an upcoming legislative session. Simultaneously, the council is continuing, I should say, to work with our partners, stakeholders, and policymakers to advocate for more robust changes to raise the liability standard to gross negligence. This is a little stalled out at the moment, but it is something we're still actively pursuing. Lastly, I'd like to invite everyone to this year's Illinois Prescribed Fire Symposium. We'll be meeting September 8th and September 9th at Giant City State Park in Makanda, Illinois. This year's format includes 2 full days, 1 day of field tours showcasing prescribed fire management and restoration projects, as well as a day of seminars featuring practitioners, researchers, partners, and others from across the region. Our keynote is going to be John Lovesith of Principia College. We've got a great lineup of topics, including climate change, GIS technology, as well as panels to pick the brains of volunteer fire departments and PBAs. Let's see. So, whether you're new to prescribed fire or have decades of experience, the symposium is a really great opportunity to learn from one another and continue building our prescribed fire community. And I think I will leave it at that. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Brittany. That was fantastic. Always good to hear about the amazing work in Illinois. But you put us a little bit ahead of schedule, so we're good. I noticed one person does have a hand up. Kayla, we have a second. Do you have a question for Brittany? If not, we will move on to our next speaker, who is Danielle Howard from the great state of Indiana. Indiana's state tree is the tulip tree, and their state bird is also the northern cardinal.
Yes, we're on the cardinal crew.
Yeah, you are. The cardinal crew is big, I noticed. Yeah. Thanks, Danielle. It's all you.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm going to mostly focus on some efforts that Indiana is making to increase our prescribed fire capacity and use across the state. So it sounds a little self-centered, but the first update is the fact that I was hired. So I am the Purdue Extension Prescribed Fire Specialist. I started in May of this year, so just a couple months in. And Purdue proposed this position last fall to the Sam Shine Foundation, and they luckily agreed to fund it for 3 years. So I was previously with the Division of Nature Preserves here in Indiana, did a lot of fire, and happy to be focusing on it more in this new position. So the purpose of my position is kind of 4 main parts. One is working on establishing PBAs throughout the state, which I'll focus on more in the next slide. Working on bolstering our Certified Prescribed Burn Manager program, supporting the Indiana Prescribed Fire Council, and then doing outreach. So as far as outreach, I've been focusing on trying to develop some sort of Indiana-specific articles and materials, including helping with a guidebook adaptation and online course for Indiana and the Midwest in general. And then one of the more sort of fun projects that we've been working on is actually outfitting a burn trailer. So you can see that there in the picture. That's a slightly older picture. I've actually put a few more things in there since then, but we luckily got funding for this from the National Wild Turkey Federation, Pheasants Forever, DNR, Sam Shine, and Purdue. We're also hoping to have a UTV as part of this setup in the near future, but this should help increase our capacity for doing learn and burn workshops. So, that way we'll have equipment and PPE for about 6 people so that we're able to help folks get a lot more hands-on experience with fire. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, something I'm working on is establishing prescribed burn associations across the state, and we're already starting to make some progress on this. So if you look in the southwest corner there was one existing PBA, the Hoosier Hills PBA. So I'm just sort of working on supporting the leader of that PBA in any way he needs, helping do an additional call-out meeting, that sort of thing. Those additional 2 marks for Brown County and Harrison County you see are places where we already have interest meetings on the schedule ready to go. So you can see the flyer there. And we're just working on getting those advertised at this point. We are also following those up with Learn and Burns, so people who attend are able to then go on and get some prescribed fire experience at a local venue. We also have a social scientist who's planning on doing some surveys there to help understand why people are interested in a PBA, what they see as barriers, that sort of thing. So hopefully we'll be getting some data to kind of understand what's going on in people's heads when they attend these meetings. In addition to those two meetings, we're in an early planning phase for a couple others, one on the east side of the state and one in the northwest near Ball State and Purdue universities. Those are places that have existing fire culture, so kind of getting that organized. And then luckily we have, just as people have seen these flyers, had more people reach out from sort of the northeast, the west part of the state. So I think in the next few years, we'll hopefully, be able to get some good PBA coverage across the state of Indiana. Next slide, please. So for those of you who don't know, Indiana did pass a prescribed fire law in 2025. So this, as many of them do, provides those additional liability protections, all that good stuff. But it did establish a certified prescribed burn manager program. This is a program that's administered through the Division of Forestry, specifically fire headquarters. So like some other states, it incorporates those NWCG trainings. So as far as trainings, that's mostly going to go through DNR, obviously. But we are working on setting up some additional opportunities for folks who need to get apprentice burns in. So like many programs, folks have to participate in 5 prescribed fires, and 2 of them they need to be apprentice burn bosses on. So one thing that I'm focusing on is trying to set up those apprentice burns for land trust staff. So sort of targeting people who already might have some fire experience or at least have places that they want to burn, have been on some fires, and getting them that certification just to help them get their prescribed fire programs up and running and make them a little bit more robust. In addition, we do hope to schedule a cooperative burn week, sort of like a Trex event in the next couple of years, where, we go to a property, maybe a Purdue property, set up several burn units, have several crews burning to help people get those apprentice burns under their belt. Right now, we have 13 certified prescribed burn managers in Indiana, which I feel like is pretty good, considering it's only been about a year since the law passed, and hopefully several more in the next couple years. Next slide. And finally, we are working on putting together a fire festival. We're trying to have it in Bloomington, Indiana, which, if you're not familiar, is sort of south central Indiana. And part of the reason for that is that Bloomington is sort of, there's a bit of anti-fire sentiment here. I say here, I'm based here. The Hoosier National Forest is just south of here, and there's been some controversy around fire. So trying to sort of get the community involved, get them on board with fire. I'm hoping to partner with Bloomington Parks, which is a really good fit because they actually use fire to manage some of their properties. And they also have this park that you can see in the photo there that has several pollinator plantings of various sizes that are surrounded by like walking paths. So there might be potential for live fire demonstrations there. I'm hoping to partner with some of the local land trusts, some of the local conservation organizations to just have a fun event where people can see fire, learn about it, and hopefully kind of shift the fire culture in Indiana. I think that's all I've got. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Reset that watch. All right, last up for this first block is Cody Wallers. Cody is from Iowa, where all of the oak species are the state tree, and their state bird is the American goldfinch. Hey, Cody, floor is yours.
Excellent. Good morning, everybody. Good to see everybody. For Iowa, we had another busy year, and kind of to kick it off, we've been in persistent drought in the western part of the state for about 6 years now, and this spring was definitely no different. So from our spring burn season, the western side was very dry for the duration of the spring season, where the eastern half of the state, and right around May 1st, got some substantial rain, which essentially shut their burn seasons down in early May. But overall, statewide, we burned about 55,000 acres this spring. A healthy chunk of that was the Fish and Wildlife Service with their new fire system, doing burns on DNR properties as well as Fish and Wildlife Service properties now that they have their MOUs in place. And then another substantial event that we had this spring was we had a large wildfire in northwest Iowa that burned about 3,000 acres. And if you're not familiar with Iowa, substantial sized wildfires are just really not common with the parcelization and the ag fields that we do have. And that was one of those high wind, dry condition days that something took off out of a brush pile that had been burned about 2.5 weeks prior, and off it went. But that spring season, very successful. In the Luss Hills, we burned 20,000 acres, about 150 burn units for the spring, and that was starting in January and running all the way through the end of May before full green up. And then we'll start getting into some of our summer burns here in the next week or two, actually. But a couple of events. We have our annual Luss Hills Cooperative Burn Week, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then the Little Sioux Cooperative Burn Week, which happened the first week of May. They had their best event to date in 5 days, burned over 1,000 acres with 30 participants. And then the Trailblazers Academy, which is a women's event that happened in early June. Another highly successful event with 45 participants, and they burned another 12 units and had a lot of very, very good leadership skills, building skills at that event. Other things that we're doing around the state is the expansion of that iFire qualification system that was implemented a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And then part of that is the Iowa DNR fire program recently hired their fire specialist position that had been vacant for 16 months. So that will help with the training and coordination of things around the state going forward. And then we're also in the process of trying to do, similar to some of you folks, doing a dashboard for that documentation and reporting process so we can capture more of what is actually happening on the landscape. Right now, we really don't have a great mechanism for doing that. So that'll be great to see what's happening in real time and where the state's sitting at any given moment. Next slide, please. So getting to that Luss Hills Cooperative Burn Week, a very, very successful event. This was our 11th annual. Total, we had 160 participants from 9 states, 61 organizations were represented. And then also this year, the state of Iowa Department of Public Safety, their mobile command vehicle was present with 21 dispatchers from across the state that were in need of building some of their skills, working on their own internal task books, things of that nature. So we utilized them as our own dispatching agency for our entire event. So they were helping coordinate the planning team as well as 4 different operational divisions on any given day. And then on one day, we had the Iowa State Patrol aviation plane that assisted with some air-to-ground communication exercises, some recon of previous days' burn units, doing some hot spotting, some thermal imaging, things of that nature. That was a pretty sweet addition to the event. All in all, 31 task books were worked on, 5 were finalized. We had 12 different burn bosses throughout the week. And through that, the byproduct was we completed 21 burn units, 3,200 plus acres, and just a lot of really, really good networking and coordination amongst the participants. One of the highlights was our our Turin prescribed burn complex. So the Turin unit had not been burned in its entirety since 2013. It's very rugged, very complex, has 17 adjacent homes. So it's a combination of County Conservation Board lands, Iowa State DNR lands, and then utilizing some neighboring private lands to make the lines more feasible and safe for the firefighters. So that was a 900-acre burn unit that was a lot of time and prep and coordination, planning, but went off without a hitch. Very successful event. So that's what I got for you.
Excellent. Thank you, Cody. I had the pleasure of driving through the Les Hills last year on my way to Wyoming to see my son, and man, that is some gorgeous country.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. All right. We do have time for questions. Our first 10-minute break doesn't start for 9 minutes. So how we use those 9 minutes is really up to you. You can pop a question in the Q&A, or if you'd rather raise your hand and we'll try and unmute you so that you can ask your question if you have any questions for any of this morning's presenters. Being none, we are ahead of schedule, but I want to stay on schedule. So we'll extend our break a little. Please be back for 10:10 when we will hear from the great state of Maine. Thanks, everyone. Michael, if you want to throw up the break slide, I guess we'll transition. Cody, if you're still there, we did have a question pop up in the Q&A. Where can they find info on the Les Hills Burn Cooperative?
You can email me or get a hold of me, and I can put you on our distribution list, and then that usually goes out sometime in late January, February for the year.
Beautiful. Thanks, Cody.
Hey, Cody. Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe put that in as a response in the Q&A, since folks may have
Okay.
signed off already for the break. Then
Will do.
Thanks.
All right, y'all. I'm going to grab a cup of coffee. I encourage you to do the same. Hi, Michael. If you're there, if you want to pull up that first slide for Maine, we'll get started right at 10. Thank you.
Sorry, I thought I heard you say we were going to start at 10:10.
You're correct. I am wrong. I'm ahead of schedule. Sorry for that.
Thanks.
Better early than late, I suppose.
Michael, do you want me to promote the other presenters that are on the panelists now, or do you want me to wait?
I've already promoted everyone. They must just be away.
They have to approve it when they're in.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, welcome back, everyone. It is now 10:10, so we will get back into our State of the States. And next up, we have Alicia Black from the great state of Maine, where white pine and black-capped chickadees rule.
Hi, good morning from Maine. I'm chair of the Maine Prescribed Fire Council, Alicia Black. And today we wanted to highlight 3 projects that speak to the collaboration happening in the state of Maine. During the fall, there it is. All right. During the late summer fall drought of 25, with some of our neighboring states in drought status and burn bans, we were able to put on a successful prescribed fire training exchange, or TREX. This was due to our partnerships shown here, which does exclude the Tall Timbers logo. I do apologize, Ron. But also with our well-established and fostered relationships with our local fire departments. Consistent communication with local and state entities kept our ability to burn active during this time. Some of the other challenges and successes from the event, one of them was the fact that we were looking at maybe not burning for the entirety of the event. And so we had to come up with valuable training to cover the time in case we weren't able to do any burning. We needed to secure funding, which ended up being a real collaborative effort from everybody. We ended up with 60 applicants from 6 nations. And in 9 operational periods, including mop-up, we did burn 109 acres. In the off time, we were able to offer a wide range of topics, such as strategic decision-making on a sim table, burn plan development and technical review, fire effects monitoring. We did ecology field trips. We talked about UAS and operations on a prescribed fire, and we did interview practice with a PIO. There were 8 different task books worked on, 8 different task books, 33 got worked on, and 9 different task books were signed off during that event. Go ahead with the next slide. And that's just some of the ecology that we were able to go out and talk about, and some of the fire pictures. Next slide. Our second highlight is a 2-year project through the University of Maine and Associate Professor Rose Zhang Abramoff and her associates. Professor Abramoff attended a Maine Prescribed Fire Council meeting and interacted with questions and ideas about prescribed fire with the council members, which culminated in the university hosting a panel discussion through the Mitchell Center for Sustainable Solutions in winter of 26. This was open to the public, and 3 members of the Maine Prescribed Fire Council sat on the panel with a University of Maine forester. And we discussed fire laws as they pertain to prescribed fire, planning and implementation. And there were over 100 attendees to that discussion. In June of this year, the university hosted, in collaboration with the Maine Forest Service, a 5-acre learn and burn in the Red Oak stand on university property. Other council members spoke to the public prior to the burn. There were forestry students from the university that actively participated, exposing them to different management methods. So the project itself had research goals that were to measure how fire affects the various plant species and soil properties in temperate forests. And other research scientists were interested in the social aspects and initiated surveys about perceptions of prescribed fire and perceived barriers of prescribed fire. A follow-up survey was sent out post-prescribed fire, and the initial survey helps to develop methodology and questions for a larger survey for the following year. Next slide. And the third highlight is a first-of-its-kind training in the state that blends hands-on S-130 field training with ecocultural stewardship, hosted within the homeland of the Wabanaki people. The blended event brought together Wabanaki cultural fire stewardship knowledge and leadership with federal wildland fire training standards led by TNC and supported by the Maine Prescribed Fire Council, creating a learning environment that honored both the Indigenous leadership and professional development. Collaborative leadership for that day was provided by John Bailey from TNC's Maine Fire Manager and Amelia St. John, a Maliseet tribal member and Ancestral Knowledge Institute program coordinator with the Bombazine Land Trust and a firefighter type 2. Amelia played a key role in building relationships across Wabanaki communities and their allies, helping ensure the training reflected cultural values and collaboration. The training brought together tribal nations, conservation organizations, government agencies, and community partners to build a foundation for future prescribed firework. Momentum is already growing with future burn sites identified in partnership with the Penobscot Nation and the Passamaquoddy tribe. More than a training event, this effort represents a long-term investment in relationship building, cultural revitalization, and collaborative stewardship that will help shape the future of prescribed fire in the Northeast. And the last thing that we wanted to mention is we are starting our discussions and building our TREX 27 for the state of Maine. That's what I have.
Okay. Next up, we have Maryland. And for Maryland, we have Shannon Wolf. And also, white oak is the state tree in Maryland. And of course, the state bird is the Baltimore Oriole. Shannon, are you with us? Shannon? Shannon?
There.
Can you hear me now?
Hey, there you are. Yes, sir.
Yep. Sorry about that.
That's all right. We're doing well on time here, so no worries. It's all you.
Okay. Yep. My name is Shannon Wolf. I'm a fire manager with the Maryland Department of Natural Resources Forest Service. 2025 was a pretty good year for prescribed burn in Maryland. We had some updates to the program. We came out with a new prescribed burn plan to update some of the elements and add to it with new technologies and things like that. We added a new reporting system in 2025 using ARC Pro Survey 123 that kind of streamlined our reporting for prescribed burning, and we were able to better capture where the burning was happening and who it was being done by, and also to be able to geo-reference that burning to polygons and to be able to analyze and share that data. So for 2025, we burned 7,418 acres statewide. 4,729 acres of that was done on state property, 118 acres on local, 2,571 acres on private land. And there was a fair amount of federal land that was burned, not captured in these numbers because they report differently. But overall, a really successful burn year for us. Our burn program, like everyone else, is growing very quickly across all land ownerships. And 2025 was kind of the pinnacle for that, and continued in 2026. Next slide. So Maryland's a fairly small state. The State Forest Service is small in comparison to other states, but given our size, we have good amount of personnel. But to be able to burn a lot, the secret to the success for burning in Maryland in 2025 really came to light was the cooperative work relationships, to be able to work with each other to get that burning done. We work with our federal partners in Maryland, National Park Service, U.S. Fish Wildlife Service, and NRCS, our state partners. With the Maryland DNR, we have Forest Service, Wildlife Service, Park Service, University of Maryland Cooperative Extension, and then local partners, county land managers, local land trust and conservancy groups, and a really strong governmental organizations in Maryland with the Nature Conservancy, Tall Timbers, Eastern Shore Prescribed Burn Association, Maryland Prescribed Fire Council, and also Quail Forever and National Wild Turkey Federation. And last but not least, we have a lot of participation in cooperative working relationship with the private landowners that are now burning and helping others get to that point to where they're able to do their own burning. So cooperative, if we were to all work individually, I don't think we would get nearly the amount of burning done. It wouldn't be as efficient, as safe, but working together, we're able to get a lot done. Next slide. So 2025 was a big year. In 2024, the Maryland Prescribed Fire Council kind of came into existence. In 2025, we kind of moved the Prescribed Fire Council ahead. Chase McLean with the Nature Conservancy is a strong force with our Prescribed Fire Council and leads that. In 2025, we were able to get a website up and running, marylandprescribedfire.org, that Chase put together. It's a great website with a lot of useful information for all ownerships of folks that are burning. We formed working groups and began working in 2025 to kind of move forward with our goals and objectives for the council, policy and implementation, looking at things like certified possibilities for certified prescribed burn managers. We were cooperatively done a lot of training, outreach, and education, and also planning for annual meeting. 2025, we formally established the first Prescribed Burn Association in Maryland, which is the Eastern Shore Prescribed Burn Association, and that PBA is kind of led, and the force behind that is Kyle Magic with Tall Timbers, and also some private landowners on the Eastern Shore, Ken Olin, and so formally established. They got their 501c3 designation in 2025, and like a lot of different cooperators, really participated and supported a lot of training in 2025. So, next slide. So cooperatively with the Maryland Forest Service and all the cooperators that we talked about earlier, the PBA and the Prescribed Fire Council, we were in the midst of all the prescribed burning that we were doing. We were able to do a lot of training as well. We conducted two prescribed burn workshops, a one-day learn and burn, where 65 participants participated. We were able to burn that day. And the main supporter of that would have been the University of Maryland Cooperative Extension. And then we also did a 2-day prescribed burn practitioners workshop where we had 30 participants with that. And that particular workshop is a requirement for private landowners to kind of get to the point to where they can be burn boss, or part of that requirement anyhow. We held a blended S130 and virtual S190, hosted by Tall Timber, supported by several cooperators, and we had 26 participants with that. And in 2025, as part of this Northeast Midwest Prescribed Fire and Science Workshop, the Nature Conservancy hosted a tour at their Nassawongo Creek Preserve to kind of showcase some of the burning that they've been doing and the success they've had with the habitat that they've created out there. So all in all, 2025 for Maryland was, we had a lot of success, a lot of things going on, a lot of burning, a lot of first with reporting and burn associations and prescribed fire council. So 2026 is been a really good year too. We'll report more on that next year.
Excellent. Thank you, Shannon. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for sharing what was going on in your state. Next up, we have Alex Entrup with the state of Massachusetts, which surprised me. Your state tree is the American elm.
Well, thanks. I'm Alex Entrup, the Prescribed Fire Project Leader for Mass Wildlife, which is the Fish and Wildlife Division for Massachusetts, and I'll be giving the update for our state. Next. Just wanted to start by acknowledging all our partners, and we've got a bunch of people really working on prescribed fire in different elements: state, federal, nonprofits, tribal, universities. Some are burning on their land, some are bringing crew out to help, but others are doing research, outreach, and other things. So it's really everybody working together to make this possible. Next. This shows a bit of where prescribed fire is happening in the state. It's a small state, and our pine barrens are concentrated down in the southeast, which is where you see a lot of it, but we have fire-dependent communities all across the state, including a lot of oak woodlands, grasslands, calcareous fens, shrublands, heathlands, and maritime communities. Next. So this is looking at 2025, 2026 so far. So in that time, the state, we've burned 102 prescribed burns. This is kind of the breakdown by agency. So you can see the National Guard, we've got municipalities, NGOs, private landowners, and then the state agencies and a couple federal burns. And these are really everybody's accomplishments. We work together, crews are shared, and so this is just the ownership, but these are really a big team effort, and really DCR fire control has probably been on every one of these burns, bringing a lot of the crew and resources. And next, you can see the same breakdown by acres. So 2025, 2026, we've done about 4,000, a little over 4,000 in the state. Next. Looking at wildfires, just to give you some context where we're at with that. This year we're probably around average so far, but the one thing that really stands out from that graph is 2024. That was a drought year. Next. And in the fall, you can see how it skewed those numbers. Those were dry fall year, didn't go out until big rain Thanksgiving. And, we kind of could be headed in that same direction this year. Next. So you can kind of see where we're at with rainfall. Much of the East Coast is at that big deficit, and so are we. Next, you can see the drought declared all across the state, including the Northeast. So we're not sure what that might mean for the fall burn season. Next, just thinking, how important is that for us? I just kind of broke down. This is only for our agency, but it's going back, 10 years of looking at when we've been able to burn. So most of our burning's been in the spring, I think, which is true for pretty much everybody. But you can see sneaking some in the winter, and then that fall season is really important for achieving some of our objectives and just making sure we can get fire across our portfolio. Next. So what is our Massachusetts landscape like? It's heavily populated, but it's not all developed. Next. I did a little breakdown too, just to look at what are our fuel models. So we're about a third grass. This is for our agency. So I didn't have everybody's information, but for us it's about a third grass, about a third timber, which is that's our oak and oak pine woodlands, and then about a third of shrub or shrub grass. So those would be our like heathlands and scrub oak and some of our maritime systems. So next, this is just kind of a typical oak woodland burn. You can see that thinned oak overstory, and we're trying to promote that nice understory and prevent white pine and maple and birch and other stuff from kind of taking over underneath. Next. And then shrublands. This is a ridgetop heathland, and trying to reclaim that blueberry from encroaching brush there as well. So this is kind of like a blueberry bulb that we're working on restoring. Next. And then our grasslands. So we have a combination of sandplain grassland, which is a globally imperiled natural community that's fire dependent. But we also have a portfolio of these restoration grasslands where we've taken ag fields, or cool season grasslands, and have been converting them into warm season grasslands. Next. And then that kind of grass shrub, just to give you an idea what that's like. This is a maritime grassland, so switchgrass, a little blue stem, and it's just mixed in with bayberry and pines and cedars and things like that. Next. And then our pine barrens. So this is a typical restoration for us. We got caught by an airplane during a prescribed burn, but you can see these even age pitch pine, white pine stands that have been thinned out. So the understory is now mostly scrub oak and heath. And then we kind of burn across that area. Next. And this is kind of like what we're hoping to promote with Good Fire. This is Montague Plains oak pine woodland with just a sea of blueberry underneath. Next. And these are our oak woodlands. This is just after first entry after a thinning, but we're really starting to get that nice diverse understory, which supports a high percentage of our biodiversity. Next, and here's a restoration grassland. So this is just a hayfield been converted to native warm season grasses, and you can see some of the wildfires starting to come up just a couple weeks after burn. On to training. Next. So a lot of training going on in the state. DCR, fire control's taking the lead on a lot of that, where they've trained 3,300 firefighters from 2025 till now. And that's a lot of municipal firefighters. They do an abbreviated wildland fire course and get those departments through to learn about wildland fire tactics. And then DCR water supply, which supplies drinking water for 3 million people in Massachusetts. They've had trained 27 of their staff, and they're starting to stand up a fire program as well. Next. A lot of interagency cooperation, including, with Mass Army National Guard. This was a training at Guard at the base at Camp Edwards with DCR Fire Control, us, and the National Guard to train some of the Guard firefighters. Next. One of the big benefits of doing all that municipal training is some of them will come out on our burns, just to kind of see what we're up to, but also get experience on their equipment and to see some fire. And some of them end up really liking it and coming out a lot. It helps us by building our capacity and building those relationships, and it can help them with getting their crews more experienced. Next. And then there's the university level too. UMass and Mount Wachusett Community College both have fire courses, wildland fire courses, including, the one at UMass is taught by Mass Wildlife and DCR staff there. And then they come out and do the field day. They get that training and experience. Some of them go on to careers in fire. Others might be volunteers. Next, just kind of wrapping up our keys for the successes we've had in 2025, 26. I think adaptability, being opportunistic and really working together. We had snow on some of our burn units this year up to April. So we got off to a really slow start. And then next it was, by some point in April, everything had dried out. It really didn't rain much, and we were in an extended mop up situation and not able to burn in certain parts of the state. So we really had to be adaptable, move around, follow rain, come in the next day after, the day before, and try to burn next. But that really meant shifting around resources, working between agencies, and making sure we could get our burn units checked, making sure we could get mop up done that next day, and just everybody being on the same page, trying to, pull in the same direction, make sure we're all being successful, and and when one succeeds, we all succeed. So that's all I've got for us. Thanks.
That was a lot, Alex. Thank you. That was fantastic and well done with the timing. That was super. All right, next up we have the state of Michigan. Michigan state tree is the white pine. And speaking for Michigan, we have Michelle Richards. Michelle. I should mention Michigan is also the American robin as the state bird for Michigan. Do we have Michelle with us? There you are.
I was going to say, you forgot my bird.
Sorry.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So I am Michelle Richards, as Neil said. I work for Michigan Army National Guard as our Wildland Fire Program Manager and Natural Resources Specialist. And I'm also the secretary of the Prescribed Fire Council and have been involved in it since nearly the beginning, but not quite. So our fire council has been around thanks to some amazing leadership early on for 26 years, going on 27 years now. So we've had a lot of time to build some pretty amazing results. I got pitched this a little bit late, so I apologize for some of the messiness of my slides, but I'm still going to give you lots of good information. So we've been doing a lot of work. We've gotten a lot of wonderful accomplishments under our belt, and I'll go into those in the next slide. So go ahead, next slide. Training and workforce development. So we do this thing called Burning Issues every year. We used to have annual meetings. We had some time in the middle of those years where we didn't have enough bandwidth inside of our organization. So we moved it to this joint thing where it's a workshop plus our annual meeting. And in 2026, we had well over 150 participants. We were pushing somewhere close to 200, depending upon how you counted and when you counted. We had some online participation, which was great. We have been able to knock it out of the park, and we regularly get really great reviews about our symposium or I guess workshop, sorry. And people are willing to, this year again, probably still do the hybrid thing. We're going to try it one more time. So if y'all are interested in hearing what Michigan's got going on, you can register here. Probably this fall we'll have those things up and ready to go for people to participate with us. In the year since this last Northeast Midwest, we've held 4 FFT2 field days and 3 RT130 refresher courses through the council. And we are about to engage in our second training exchange. We did one in 2024. In 2025, we did a burn week because we couldn't quite pull off an additional treks in between years, which was wildly successful. I'm wearing the shirt. Forged in Fire, it was collaborative burn week. We had people from all over the state attend. I believe we had around 40 participants, including people who were kind of acting as pseudo IMT in that, as well as a bunch of folks who were learning things in the burn week. I think our next treks is going to be even better than the first one because we've learned lots of lessons and we've got even more folks involved this time. So we will update on that one next year. In our burn week, we burned 816 acres. We had some difficult winds that we don't usually get out of the east, so that kind of slowed our progress in getting more acres in. But we burned 6 out of 7 days during burn week, and personal accomplishments. Me and the other oldest person there were the only people who were on every burn that week because we also did an S211 pumps training. So we made it worth everybody's while for sure. And we've done a bunch of burn plan writing workshops. Grace Anna Cooper, our fire specialist in the DNR, has been an amazing champion of our Certified Prescribed Burn Manager program, which has been in play now for almost 2 years. It took a while for the legislation to actually get implemented, but we are running hard with it, and she is an amazing and dynamic force getting that done. And we have a nascent tracking qualification system for people who are not inside an agency and supported by an IQS, IQCS. We're not issuing certificates, but we are trying as a council to help people who aren't inside an agency be able to track what they've been able to learn certificate-wise and potentially even the burns. And I know the CPBM course is actually tracking people's burns and experience too. Next slide. So outreach successes in the last year, we've done several learn and burn events with multiple partners, both on lands that belong to conservancies, as well as we've had some university learn and burns. We had a MSU students, Michigan State University students, came out to our burn week, and they got to do a learn and burn event there while we were in the middle of a fire. So it was a really fabulous learning event for those forestry students. Lots of public talks on fire and water quality because we've been funded by a Forest in My Faucet grant. Landowner engagement increasing statewide as we do these CPBMs. We've spoken at multiple conservation district events, trying to engage the landowners where they gather rather than trying to drag them into our events, which has been super helpful. And then a bunch of educational and outreach things with scouts and this girls in STEM kind of thing, 4-H field demo, which is what this picture's from. Took them out to a preserve and showed them around how fire works and what it does for our habitats. And then we also help with various universities doing their S130, 190, and then 290 courses. And this year, we produced an annual report, which can be found on our website. If you want to take a peek at that, it was great to be able to put things together in paper form and have people be able to see what we're doing. We've also worked really hard to engage tribes. So inside of our Burning Issues session in February, we had a whole tribal session, which was amazing and eye-opening and enlightening for a lot of folks in the room. And we have a tribal member and also Michigan Natural Features employee on our IMT for our treks. And we've got some tribal folks inside the treks as students and on the cadre. So we're trying to make that integration happen and respect the traditional ecological knowledge that is also integral to bringing fire back onto the landscape and empowering Native Americans to have that relationship that has been harmed by some of what we've done through time. Next slide. So I mentioned the CPBM. We've had multiple courses over the last year and a half or so. Over 70 are now certified. I apologize for having the details on that. Our Grace Ann is on detail right now out in Colorado, so I didn't get the actual numbers, but I know for sure we've got 70. It's a clear pathway for people to do fire line leadership. We've been able to help in many ways to get people those fires, both through agency support and some of our NGOs. And I wanted to give a shout out to our NGOs. They have really stepped up across the state into the fire realm, and the Kalamazoo Nature Center did the Spark Scholar program with some grant funds that they had this year, where they pulled in fire department folks as well as some regular humans that aren't necessarily fire associated, and provided them with PPE of their own and some fire experiences and education. And it was a great outreach opportunity. And I know they're hoping to do that again. There's also lots of other activities that our people are doing out there and helping in that outreach piece. We're doing networking connections too, right? So Southwest Michigan Prescribed Burn Association-ish has had a few meetings, and the Fire Council is also trying to support prescribed burn associations as they develop. Go ahead, next slide. And then we are now a 501c3. After much deliberation, hair pulling, hand wringing, and work, we made it to 501c3. We are elated that we're going to have some opportunities to apply for funds. We are a bootstrap organization with entirely volunteer work, except for a little tiny coordinator that we pay a little bit of time for. So we've also changed our board structure, where we're adding regional representation to the board instead of just the officers. And like I said, we've got a PBA committee for private landowner support that we are standing up and running thanks to some of Grace Anna's help. And we're doing a fire festival in October. And someday we'll have data, but we don't have that yet.
Multiple fire festivals. That's fantastic. Michelle, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Neil.
Yep. Next up, we have Minnesota, where red pine and the common loon are their state tree and state bird, respectively. And for Minnesota, we have Kevin Behrens. Kevin, you there?
I'm there. You got me?
Yeah. Excellent.
Great. Sounds good. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. My name's Kevin Behrens. Your program, and I serve in there as the statewide management coordinator. So our little program is probably the best program within the DNR, as we support the protection of some of the most unique resources in Minnesota. My colleague Jim Wilson,
Hey,
as
Kevin.
I worked through a few of his slides, he was yeah.
You might turn your camera off because your bandwidth is a little slow. So maybe turn your camera off and just try the audio.
All right, is that any better?
Yep, go ahead and keep going.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for that. Thanks for that update. Yeah, so just so I was saying, yep, my colleague here, Jim Wilson, was dispatched up north to assist with the fire suppression efforts in the Northeast. So bear with me as I work through a couple of his slides, but we can move on to the next slide and jump into it here. So looking at the state of Minnesota from the DNR's perspective, these are some of the accomplishments here over the few years of our prescribed burning. We roughly land around 50,000 acres as a DNR agency of acres burned, with a pretty ambitious goal you can see in the green here of planned acres. We kind of get these numbers from, we have a system where we kind of, for burn permitting purposes, we get our burn plans kind of submitted and put into this database, and then kind of check things off as we accomplish them through the year. As we work through this data and things like that, some big changes that we're working on are to more spatially and visually kind of show this data. So hoping to have ArcGIS and other existing platforms to be able to spatially see where the burns are happening and kind of where that work is being done. recognizing that we've got a long ways to go to see this acreage increase in the state, because we know there's an incredible deficit of prescribed fire that is not happening, and we hope to see that increase, and that comes from more than just the agency folks burning. And what that looks like is support from a lot of non-agency people and a lot of partners. So let's jump to the next slide here. We have a Minnesota Prescribed Fire Council. They're an incredible group of folks that have been kind of working to help with that not agency side of burning and getting those certified prescribed burn managers trained, and kind of helping, how do we facilitate that training? What does that look like? Some things that are happening, I guess, on the collaborative side between the state and the council with the CPMB program, is there's the creation of this prescribed fire burn portal, which will be utilized by our non-agency folks to kind of work with their burn planning, more of a spatial database for the burns that are happening, as well as a spot for training to be an experience to be kind of tracked for folks that are outside of agency that don't have access to the other qualification systems that exist for tracking those kind of things. Yeah, the council plans to have had a successful workshop here in 2026, joining with the Wisconsin Fire Council as well, and are looking to have another one in 2027. And a little more information on the council can be found on their website. But yeah, just wanted to briefly highlight all the incredible work that they're doing to really help support and maybe move the needle a little bit more in the positive direction to see more fire happen and put more fire on the ground. So go ahead to the next slide. So what I really want to highlight here, which is I think why I was kind of reached out to, was part of, maybe just highlight one fire project that's been happening in the state. I've been lucky to be a part of it, and it's just been a great example of kind of collaborative and keeping going when things kind of seem like they're leading towards this is not going to happen. Continue to push forward and find new avenues and new relationships. So this project here, Returning Fire to Minnesota Point Pine Forest Scientific and Natural Area. For those that are maybe a little bit familiar with Minnesota Pine Forest is on this little spit of land just outside of, within Duluth. So if you're familiar with the iconic Duluth aerial lift bridge, you cross the lift bridge, drive up to the end, and there's an old growth pine forest that exists down there, and it's protected as a SNA. It also has, within that, some rare coastal dune ecosystems, and with the, with fire suppression, other threats of erosion, recreational pressure, fire just is something that has not been implemented out there in over 100 years, and it was identified as an area that is a fire dependent forest, and we started kind of going down the road of what would it take to put fire back in this ecosystem, and it's been a big learning opportunity. So along with the ecological benefits, the Minnesota Point is an incredibly rich cultural history. So Minnesota Point is the ancestral and contemporary homeland of the Ojibwe people, and historically fire was used here intentionally for stewardship, so maintaining healthy understories, supporting food and medicinal plants, sustaining wildlife habitats. So part of the goal of this project is to respectfully include the cultural pieces of the burn, looking at the ecological pieces and figuring out where that kind of all pulls together, as well as you could imagine looking at this picture here, burning in an incredibly urban area where smoke will be visible, be lots of people asking questions. There's a community that lives on the end of the point. We're right up against an airport. There's shipping lanes. There's Army Corps engineer side of things. There's old growth forest. There's large, I guess, pump houses pulling water out of the lake to supply municipalities. There's a lot of things that go into it that may have that kind of led towards this could be very difficult to achieve, but ultimately and I'll highlight this on the next page. There's been an incredible amount of folks that have become involved with this project to make it happen. And I guess that's been a big piece of it, is that collaborative effort. It's unique in the fact that as we've kind of gone around the way to create the burn plan for this unit itself, we've had an incredible communications team, and we've included pre-burn monitoring activities. There's been a lot of community meetings, community engagements, and things like that. So it's been a great, hopefully, it's been a great success story in burn planning, and hopefully we'll see a fire this fall. But if you want to jump to that last page there, you can kind of see just for this little 17 acres, these are the folks that have been involved, and my encouragement is continue to push through that red tape, because it's possible, and there's a lot of positive support for a lot of these projects if you keep moving. So appreciate your time. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. Stay safe out there. Next up, we have the state of Missouri, where their state tree is flowering dogwood, and they share state bird is the eastern bluebird. And for Missouri, we have Wes, right? All right. Hey, Wes, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
I won't try and butcher your last name, but feel free to pronounce it for us.
I'm Wes Buckite. I serve as the treasurer of the Missouri Prescribed Fire Council. Also serve as prescribed fire coordinating biologist for Quail Forever in the state. So I wanted to share a few of our highlights from the council from the past year. And looking at the map here, we've really focused on PBA support the last 8+ years. And so in 2022, we had 5 PBAs in the state and currently have 9 across. And so we got 2 or 3 in the process of forming, really just having discussions right now, some meetings coming up next month. And these PBAs have been able to ramp up their capacity because we're getting more on the landscape, but also many of them are hitting a groove and being able to get more projects done each year. So last year, and I consider the burn season from July through June. So up until this June, they've been able to complete 214 burns in over 3,600 acres. And we had pretty good fire weather this past year. And so between our private land practitioners, our state and federal agencies, and NGOs, we're able to get over 120,000 acres completed last year. Next slide, please. So the council's really been focusing on training, providing training, and really for PBAs, because those groups have been asking for more advanced topics to build upon our state CPBM program. So the first one we've put together was a spot fire workshop, and that really, the classroom of that really focuses on ways that we can reduce the chance of fire getting outside the unit through planning, preparation, and implementing the burn. And then we go out to the field, and it's now about, okay, you got fire outside the unit. How do you respond? How do you communicate that? How do you coordinate your resources and your crews? And so you can see in the picture there, the cadre demonstrates that whole process, suppresses that fire, extinguishes it. And then we get all the participants and break them out to 5 or 6 person crews. And then they grab the hand tools, and you're only allowed a backpack pump for water. And we let them have someone volunteer as IC. And so and then we get the spot fire underground. And so it's really this training opportunity for folks to step into the hot seat, step into the uncomfortable position of dealing with this, and take a moment and work through that process of communication and coordination. So after each crew extinguishes the fire, we do a brief AAR and then get the next crew going. So we try and build it to where each crew gets at least 2 repetitions, and folks get a chance to switch up tools, switch up roles on the burn. So we've really taken that classroom portion of prevention and built out a burn unit preparation workshop as well. It's a little bit easier. It's not as weather dependent. We've also, last year, we hosted 2 of our PBA burn plan writing workshops. This is to address a bottleneck in burn plan development. And so we have a classroom session of presentations, get out in the field, we scout a grassland and a woodland unit, come back to the classroom, do some sand table ignition sequencing exercises, and then those groups develop a burn plan and maps for the unit that they scouted, and they present it to the class that day. Also want to note, we found that CalTopo is a free and relatively easy to use mapping service, and so we put together a mapping guide for that. And then lastly, the council is organizing and going to be contracting out some chainsaw safety trainings this winter. So it's really good to see that PBAs are also coordinating their own trainings locally and sharing that with neighboring PBAs. And so that's been first aid, CPR, defibrillator, and then lately conversations of ATV and UTV driving courses. So shifting from trainings geared towards PBAs to resource professionals, we were able to host the Southern Missouri Treks this past March. And I mean Ryan Gogger with TNC, with help from agency and organization staff. That was the fourth one. And you can see in that far right picture, the Treks sign is covered in water. Despite the challenging weather in that 2-week period, they're able to get 16 fire ops done in over 6,000 acres. And so cumulative for Treks for 4 years, over almost 80 operations, over 55,000 acres, and 110 trainees from FFT2 to Bird Boss. Next slide, please. So just wanted to highlight a few of our products that we've been able to put together. First is our brochure for the council. And this is something that our resource professionals can carry in their work truck to take to private landowners and take to events. PBA members have that for their members as well. And it's something that can be set on the USDA Service Center counter for folks to find. So we've got a lot of links in there for our CPBM course. The Prescribed Burning Act guidance document that really makes the state statute more digestible and really explains what that means. It's got the link to all of our PBAs and the contact page for them, and highlights our Log Your Burn tool, voluntary anonymous data submission, and our summaries that can be found there. Next, we have our Missouri Fire Needs Assessment. And this is just showing, what historically likely occurred, the amount of fire and how often, and shows us what we're currently achieving and showing that it's far below where we want to be. And so it's just that justification device that we can share with private landowners, policymakers, and fire practitioners for a common understanding and vision to increase our prescribed fire capacity in the state. And then lastly is our PBA roadmap. And this is really summarizing the process that we found to be successful in bringing people together, really steering those conversations, and then providing those resources that we put together to help PBAs go from an idea to actually on the ground and helping each other out. So those are all available, and it's been great to see that our latest PBA that formed, Morgan-Benton County PBA, they started organizing everything on their own from local community members, and then reached out to the council and said, hey, we got a date planned for a meeting and would love to have you come and help us out. So it really took a lot of that workload from agency organization staff and the council to community driven. And so that's great to see. So thank you for letting me share some of the stuff going on in Missouri.
Thanks, Wes. That was fantastic. Next up, we have Chad Fires from the state of New Hampshire. And New Hampshire is interesting. White birch and purple finch. White birch is their state tree. Purple finch is the state bird. Chad, it's all you. Not sure if you're there yet. There you are. Good morning, sir. You have the floor.
Me? Yep. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm with the New Hampshire Prescribed Fire Council. Like many of you, our objective is to promote the safe use of prescribed fire on the landscape. I've been on the council for 2-3 years now, and of all of our, sub-objectives, I would say what we've been working on lately the most is using the council as a forum for member agencies to kind of collaborate, have some dialogue, and kind of share objectives, techniques, and then help each other with implementation. And then as a training hub. So we've been able to accomplish both of those objectives over the last few years that I've been here. We're a small state, and it's a fairly scrappy council. The folks that are on it are really the ones, who are out getting the burns done as well. We don't necessarily have the the backing of full-time positions and stuff to help run the council or run different program areas. Excuse me, I need more coffee today. And we've had some turnover, some retirement, and things like that over the last couple of years. So thinking about the theme of kind of adaptation and resilience, we wanted to highlight, the importance, like many people have said, about collaboration. And so, our MOU is what folks really wanted to highlight. That allows us to really be that forum and be there for each other to help out on burns. The initial MOU that we had for the council was established years ago and led by the White Mountain National Forest, and basically allowed them to come help others burn with the resources and expertise that they had. A few years ago, that shifted away from the National Forest centric model, and the council chose to use the DoD template and model our current MOU off that. It had a language and kind of a straightforward nature that works for many of the partner agencies. And so really that MOU, the ability to help each other out, quickly and effectively has been what helped the council and burners across the state to help weather some of the different changes. So, obviously the kind of funding and staffing and administrative changes, that are occurring federally, certainly happening here. And then we've got some other challenges like that in the state as well. So the ability to have kind of a core unit on the council that can share, equipment, resources, and help each other out has been what's helped us keep good fire on the ground across the state. So that's been big for us. So this year we have so far about 355 acres burned. A good chunk of that has been the White Mountain National Forest. And then we got 220 acres, at least on the books, still planned for 2026. I imagine probably a few dozen more than that from some other agencies that I didn't hear from. I just got back from parental leave, which is why I only have 2 slides, but I was able to reach most people in time for the presentation. So last year, we did have some challenges with drought that other folks have mentioned as well in the region. So we had the statewide burn ban in the fall, which definitely impacted our ability to get some stuff done in our state, although especially TNC New Hampshire, they were able to assist in Maine and some other areas that were able to still burn. So a lot of what we've been burning lately has been restoring blueberry heath areas. That's been a big one. Burning for oak silviculture, restoring and promoting native grasses, and a big focus on the wildlife habitat benefits of burning. I can go to the next slide. So I am with Southeast Land Trust in New Hampshire. We're a fairly small land trust serving the southeasternmost 2 counties of the state. So we are not in the MOU. So it's been a little different for us. I came from some state and county agencies in the southeast before coming back up to the northeast. A very different kind of landscape and approach to getting burns done in the different regions, and also coming into a smaller nonprofit. And so, again, we were able to get this burn done. That's in the photos here. This is Birch Ridge Community Forest in New Durham. And collaboration was really the key here. Being able to get on the council and, ask a lot of questions, have the expertise and experience of folks that have been burning throughout the state. And ultimately for us, with trying to meet our parameters and time frame to get this burn done. Again, this first one for the organization. We ended up contracting, private contractor for this burn. That's Star Tree Prescribed Fire out of New Jersey. They burn up and down the East Coast. And for us, that kind of allowed us the ability to have that opportunistic nature and be adaptive to some of the funding challenges and capacity challenges in the state. And so this went really well for us. We want to continue being a part of the prescribed burn landscape in New Hampshire as a land trust. but I'm the only staff member with fire background. So the contracting was really crucial for us. And then it also provided a good kind of touch point for other folks on the council to hear, how it went using this contractor and using a pretty different approach than kind of the collaborative MOU approach that we typically use here. So some of the keys to getting this burned down, this is a 20-acre unit, so it was nothing too crazy, but again, the very first one for our land trust. And kind of an important one in the region for the public. It was another great example of getting the fire department out there and getting some experience on a burn, and then getting some other council members out there, and then being able to communicate to other types of landowners like smaller nonprofit land trusts about how they might be able to actually start looking at doing some prescribed burning. So, I think what it took for this project, there always has to be some folks that have that familiarity with prescribed fire to kind of lead the efforts. But again, the collaboration, folks going out of their way on the council to come, look at what we had and scratch our heads and figure out how to get it done. And then kind of some courage and commitment on the parts of the community forest leadership, the management committee, to take this project that they hadn't done before and say, no, this is important and we need to do it. And for the land trust to say, hey, we haven't done this before either, and we're going to lean on the expertise of our cooperators to try and get it done. So hopefully the first of more to come for us, and another way to just keep fire on the ground in different ways in our state. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Chad. And congratulations. Thanks for joining us. Next up and last before our next 10-minute break is New Jersey, where much to my surprise, the northern red oak is the state tree and the American goldfinch is their state bird. For New Jersey, we have Jeremy Weber. Jeremy, good morning.
Morning, everybody from the Great Garden State. I'm Jeremy Weber. I'm the Supervising Forest Fire Warden. I'm the program manager for the Prescribed Fire Program in the state of New Jersey and the training program as well. Next slide. Here's a recap of the last few years that we've had prescribed fire. Our highlight was in 2019, COVID, where we had 28,000 acres. But as you can see, as we've come across the last couple of years, in 2025, we had a really slow year as a shoulder from that drought that occurred in the fall of 2024. And then in 2026 year, we've been able to get a little bit of stuff done, but we were plagued by snow and ice that stuck around for weeks, which is very unfamiliar to Central and South Jersey. Familiar to our Highlands folks, but not down in the central and southern part of the state where it usually lasts a day or two before it melts off. So that's kind of impacted us a little bit this past year. Next slide. So during that snow and ice, although we did get a lot of snow and ice, it stuck around for 4 weeks, but we didn't get any precipitation in between those times. So as you can see, the drought monitor from April 22nd of 2025 through March of this year, and then all the way into July here, July 2nd, we were experiencing dry conditions like many other people across the Mid-Atlantic here and Northeast. Here the last 2 weeks before I left on vacations when I put this together, we've had some significant rainfall, and I imagine the drought monitors come down to more accommodating measures. Next slide. So that shoulder drought that kind of went over from 2024 into 2025, well, the Jones Road fire that happened in April 22nd of last year was our 14th largest fire in the state, and it basically burned out to the bay. So the reason I'm putting the wildfire slide up in here is because the primary objective for 99% of the burns that happen in the state of New Jersey is for that high hazard fuel reduction. And having a couple years where we didn't get a lot of work done on the ground because of weather constraints, whether it's too much rain or too wet or too dry. Our primary focus is to get these treatments on the ground to try to reduce the risk of that catastrophic wildfire. Next slide. So one of those ways we're looking to reduce those risks is to get more people trained up. And we're currently working with the Forest Stewards Guild and Tall Timbers to develop a certified prescribed burner course for private landowners and nonprofits to participate in, get certified and get some experience, real world experience and some knowledge to help facilitate getting more burns down on the ground. Next slide. Another tool that we've been working on to help facilitate getting more fire across the landscape is a tool that the Timmins Group's been working on with us, the New Jersey Fireshed and Shared Stewardship Planning Tool. It's basically a portal that's being developed to allow land managers across the state of New Jersey to see where and what land management activities are being accomplished by whether it's the Forest Service, the Forest Fire Service, state management activities to see where they're happening, where they're scheduled, primarily prescribed fire, and if there is prescribed fire scheduled in an area that's next to a landowner that is interested or has a stewardship plan or a woodland management plan that is receptive to that, then we can kind of combine those at the same time rather than spending a day doing 5 or 6 acres on one landowner's piece, where we're doing 1,000 acres right next door. If we can just do it all at the same time, it makes the most sense. So we're trying to create this platform to allow that cross-boundary jurisdictional approach to give people a better idea what's going on, where it's going on, and how we can plan together in the future and get more done. Next slide, please. Another way of building the capacity was we put together a couple of these RXB mobile trailers. We put together two, one for our northern part of the state and one for our central and southern part of the state. These are going to be used for private landowners and nonprofits to utilize that don't have all the tools and equipment that the state does. So they'll be on loan in the coming year. Next slide. This year, we were actually finally able to purchase a drone. So we bought one of the Alta X Ignis ignition systems, and we just kind of kicked that off this spring, working through it. We're actually going to be purchasing another one here in the next month or two. So we'll have 2 in the state, and they'll be run out of our aviation facility at Coyle Field. Next slide. And lastly, one thing that hasn't happened here in the past is the use of air curtain burners. So we're currently working with our air program within the state to develop an administrative order that allows us to use an air curtain burner in the state and permit it under our prescribed fire permitting that we institute, so that we can get some work done across the state utilizing these air curtain burners. Currently, the intent is only going to be for the state to use it and for hazard fuel reduction only. So when we're doing fuel breaks and removing a lot of trees and getting rid of that debris off the side of the roads or out of those fire breaks that we're creating, this will be a way to dispose of it because there are no wood markets in central and south Jersey to get rid of the materials. And with that, I will let us get back to, I guess, our next or the end of this session.
Thanks, Jeremy. That's great. A lot of really cool stuff happening in New Jersey. That brings us to the end of our second block. We do have a 10-minute break scheduled. So that will take us up to actually 11:25. So we will reconvene at 11:25 for our last block. Thank you.
Hey, Neil, did you see the chat about Tom in Ohio?
Yes, and I have the email. So we have a plan.
Okay.
Yep. Thanks, Polly.
I want to.
Hey, Todd, do you have something for me?
No, I was just struggling, but I got it. I got the
All right.
video and audio to work now.
Sweet. See you shortly.
Thanks.
All right, welcome back everyone to the final block of day 3. And first up we have New York State, Scott Jackson, where the sugar maple is a state tree and Lake Missouri eastern bluebird is a state bird. Scott Jackson with the New York State DEC is going to be providing you with a summary of prescribed fire activity in New York State. Scott, you there?
Neil, my audio all right?
Yeah, there you are. You're good.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Good morning. Yeah, so prescribed fire in New York State for 25, 26. If you could give me the next slide, please. So these are our stats from 2025. We've had a pretty active year with 68 prescribed burns for a total of 1,649 acres. And those numbers are primarily DEC lands, Albany Pine Bush, and other NGOs. They don't include the federal burns that happen in the state. We do assist with those sometimes, but they report those elsewhere. It also doesn't include any private land acreage, which it's one of the things we hope to be able to capture more effectively in the future, because I think that's becoming a bigger piece of the story. But by land management, about 41% of it was DEC Division of Lands and Forests, which manage our state forests, and 17% Division of Fish and Wildlife, who manages our wildlife management areas. About 23% of that was the Albany Pine Bush Preserve, and then the remaining 19% was other NGO and other state agency lands. By fuel type, it was primarily grassland with about 29% woodland. And we're really working to build capacity and expand our program. So there's 9 DEC regions in the state. Last year and again this year, we've burnt in 7 of those 9 regions. So it's really expanding to be a nearly statewide program at this point. Some of our other accomplishments from 2025, we added about 4,500 acres of DEC land to prescribed fire plan portfolio, which brings us up to a little over 8,500 acres of DEC lands that are currently under plan to potentially be burnt. And we also had 25 people finish certification of NWCG task books. A large part of that was through prescribed fire participation. So it has become a really important part of our training and qualification program is these prescribed fires, because the wildfires occur, but they aren't as reliable. So we can always count on having prescribed fire. So it's a good opportunity to train people. Next slide. Some of our successes from prescribed fire. I think the communication, coordination, and partnerships. We worked on agreements with a lot of cooperating agencies. And our prescribed fire season really starts in January. It starts with the burn bosses talking to local land managers to identify what their priorities are of where they want to burn in their area, and also where the needs are for the pre-burn work, so that they can ensure that pre-burn work is getting done before we come up to when we start burning in late March or early April. I'm also coordinating with the burn bosses to do a statewide press release that includes all of the areas that we might be burning in the spring, so that we can get that out there as part of our public notification. And then another thing that we started doing a few years ago that really has been helpful is weekly burn boss calls. So in the past, each burn boss kind of had their little siloed area of control where they had their burn plans and their burn areas, and they had their local resources that they worked with. But there wasn't a lot of coordination outside of that. But now that we've gotten, a little bit bigger, there's more need to coordinate resources to ensure everybody's got what they need. And sometimes we have to move people around to make sure they got everything they need to do a burn. So we've implemented this every Friday morning. We have a call with all the burn bosses, and they kind of go over what they might be looking at burning the following week and any needs they have, so that we can try to fill those gaps and needs and make sure everybody has what they have to have a successful burn that following week. Another thing we've been doing for 5 years now is burn modules, primarily to Region 1, which is Long Island, and that's because we have a lot of acreage under plan down there, and it covers a variety of the fuel types that we have in the state. And we also don't have a lot of staff down there. We work with some of the other partner agencies like the Central Pine Barrens Commissions and TNC. And we identify modules of people that are interested in working towards being a burn boss at any level. And then we're building these modules that's usually up to 7 people. It's usually a burn boss trainee, a couple firing boss trainees, a qualified engine boss, a couple engine boss trainees, and a squad boss trainee. And we pre-build these modules for each week so that they all know what week is theirs if it's a go. And then on the Friday call, we make the go, no go decision for the module for the following week. And if it's a go, which would mean that we've got at least 3 days that we think we can burn down there, they travel down on Sunday and stay for the week. Any day they're not burning, they're helping with prep work for future burns, things like saw work and line construction, line reinforcement to help prep for future burns. And that's been really successful. It's getting a lot of task book work done, giving people opportunities to train in fuels that they may not have in other parts of the state. And it's also been a force multiplier because it also usually coincides with our spring fire season down there. So having, essentially a task force of people down there that if a wildfire does occur, and it's happened multiple times now over the last 5 years, they can shut their prescribed fire down and roll like a task force with engines and UTVs and people to show up and help to bring those fires to a quick end, and gives them some opportunities to get some wildfire tasks done in their task books as well. So that's been a really successful part of our program. And then just capacity building overall, we've put a lot of investment into equipment, PPE, training, trying to build capacity and do multiple projects in a single day and develop additional plans. Next slide. Some of our big challenges is the weather and other restrictions. We can't control the weather. Last year was really good. We had a lot of good burn days in the spring. This year, not so much. It was pretty cold and damp. We still did get a lot done, but we did start later than we normally would. And we had a lot of units that just went from too wet to burn to green, and there never really was an opportunity to burn them. There's also some wildlife restrictions on dates we can't burn before or after. So we're working with the land managers to try to mitigate and reduce some of those restrictions so that we can possibly expand our burn into more opportunity days. Another challenge, and I guess it's a good challenge, but we're kind of a victim of our own success, is span of control. We're fortunate, all the rangers in the state, because suppression is one of our key roles. They're qualified staff, but then we've also got over 150 people, non-rangers within our department that are now trained to assist with fire, primarily foresters and biologists, but there's also people from other divisions within our department. So that gives us a pool of over 300 people just within our department that can assist on prescribed fires. And we've also got people from other state agencies, NGOs, and people that were able to sign up as DEC volunteers that are willing to come and participate. So that's a good thing to have all that, but it's also starting to present some potential span of control issues that we're trying to just be cognizant of, because now we're having on average about 30 people show up at a burn. A lot of those burns really only need 10 to 12 people. So just making sure everybody's got a clear line of leadership and the proper PPE can sometimes be a challenge. And that goes into the next one, is logistics also. If you get a lot of people showing up without equipment and PPE, we've got to make sure we've got enough on hand to outfit them, and coordinating to move stuff around to burn and get things done where it's needed. Next slide. And this is kind of showing our trajectory over the last several years. Both the number of fires and acreage, we've been steadily on the rise and climbing, trying to accomplish more. So I think it's been very successful, but we've still got a long ways to go, and we're going to continue to advance. Next slide. And then the other piece is in January 2026, a steering committee of members of a variety of backgrounds began meeting to further development of the New York Prescribed Fire Council. So more to come on that, but it is, you know, a positive step to have the workings of the beginning of a prescribed fire council and hopefully a conduit for more prescribed fire on the ground in the state. So more to come on that. And that is it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Fantastic. Next up is the state of Ohio, where, of course, the state tree is the Buckeye, and they are also part of that northern cardinal belt. However, Tom Schuman, who is going to be presenting, he and his crew were pulled up to Minnesota to help with fighting some of those wildfires up there. So I am going to do my best to walk through the slides he provided. It's great that, 20 states in the region and all 20 states and Canada, as well as the Prescribed Fire Coalition, all contributed to the presentations today. So I will do my best to walk through Tom's slides. Tom is from the Ohio Division of Forestry. And he identified one of the problems they have in Ohio, like many eastern states, is fewer acres of public lands, and many are very fragmented using prescribed fire. They've been using it regularly since the 90s, mostly on agency-owned lands, and the agencies have enough of their own work to do, so the collaboration's really been key. Next. A particular collaborating project that he calls out here is this project with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Partners for Fish and Wildlife Program. They've been active with prescribed fire projects along the coast of Lake Erie, mostly for waterfowl habitat, but recently expanded prescribed fire to some other projects in other parts of the state. The Ohio Private Lands Prescribed Fire Cooperative is something that they've created, where they're partnering with TNC for a burn boss and crew on lands actually owned by the Columbus Zoo, also known as the Wilds. And this is 10,000 acres of former strip mining land owned by the Columbus Zoo and apparently used for safari-type tours. Next. And this past year, they burned 905 acres there. It's situated right next to their visitor center, and we have some experience with that here in New York. It provides great opportunities for education and outreach. And they worked with the staff there on both developing goals and objectives in the project planning, as well as installing fire breaks. And the crew is a combination of partners, recurring theme today: the Fish and Wildlife Service, the Nature Conservancy, and various divisions within the Ohio DNR, which provided their burn boss. And here's a closer look at that site. This is a separate site, this Cross Boundary project, where they're working in Wayne National Forest and Ohio DNR own adjoining lands, but they have not had projects that really spanned across their boundary. Long story short, they implemented a prescribed fire there that included both properties, which is incredible. Next. To date, they have burned 65% of the planned acreage and treated 62% of the mechanical and chemical projects that they had planned with that Forest Service grant. And it's a combination of the Forest Service and Division of Wildlife, partnered across both agencies' lands, interestingly using aerial ignitions, and completed the largest burn on record to date, which was about 2,000 acres. And they have a drone. We saw a drone earlier. I believe it was New Jersey, but they also have an Ignis drone, and that helped them tremendously this past spring. The first dedicated season where they used a drone resulted in great control, a lot less walking apparently, and helped them to moderate fire intensities by being able to ignite from above. And this past fall, they had their annual Ohio Prescribed Fire Manager course. It was a 4-day course that resulted in 29 additional folks being trained as Ohio Prescribed Fire Managers. Is there another slide, Michael? So before we transition to Ohio, the only other thing that Tom shared in his email to me was that overall last year, they had about 200 burns in Ohio, and they burned a total of 10,000 acres, which is a great accomplishment for all the folks in the state of Ohio. And as you can see, some great partnership. I am not Tom. I did my best. Hopefully you all took away some of the interesting things that he wanted shared to represent the great state of Ohio. And hopefully I didn't go over on my own time, because I don't want to cut into Todd. Oh, look at that. We're right on schedule here, Todd. You're a minute early. So next up from Pennsylvania, we have Todd Brenninger. Todd, in Pennsylvania, the state tree is the eastern hemlock, and I love your state bird, both to listen to and to eat. It's the ruffed grouse. Todd, the floor is yours. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Neil. Interestingly enough, we do a lot of prescribed burning for the ruffed grouse for habitat management. Not so much for the hemlock, but we do lots of burning for the actual ruffed grouse. Like Neil said, my name's Todd Breininger. I'm the prescribed fire specialist for Pennsylvania DCNR Bureau of Forestry. I also serve on as a secretary on the board of directors for the Pennsylvania Prescribed Fire Council, and I'm also on the governing board of the Coalition of Prescribed Fire Councils. So I'll be talking about this from the kind of the Prescribed Fire Council standpoint, not kind of covering what we do as DCNR, because we put on a lot of other trainings and academies that I won't cover here. But Pennsylvania, we're very fortunate. We have a very active Prescribed Fire Council. They were formed in 2007 with the goal of promoting safe and effective fire use across all the lands of the Commonwealth. And it's a pretty good mix of federal, state employees, and then we have a lot of nonprofits, and private people are starting to get into the council as well. So we have a pretty good mix of people, pretty heavy on the state government side of things right now, but the demographics are starting to change a little bit. And we're fortunate that over the years, we have a pretty healthy bank account, so we can do a lot of things other councils can't do. So we make quite a bit of money at our meetings, and that lets us do a lot of our other projects as we move throughout the year. Next slide, please. This slide's just kind of showing you a snapshot of the state. These are fires that have burned, the prescribed burns that we've had from 2010 to 2024. It's just giving you where the locations are, something that's kind of, when you look at it, doesn't truly show the picture of it, because all I'm doing is when I get a burn plan, I will put the Latin lawn of just one of the locations of the burn plan. So what you're looking at there, when you see a dot across the state there, that could be a burn plan that covers a couple hundred units on thousands of acres of land. And those were burned multiple times throughout all those years. So it's just kind of giving you a snapshot of where fire is being put on the ground. And you can kind of see we have, some holes like over in the southwestern part of the state. There's a little bit of hole where we're not getting a whole lot of prescribed fire. But this will give you a picture of where fire is actually being put out there. So as far as last year for prescribed fire, we had almost 400 burns with a little over 16,000 acres that were burned. That's a little bit above our normal average. Probably the last handful of years, we're looking at 15,000 acres a year is what we're burning. So that was a little bit better. Currently this year, we're almost at 15,000 acres. So I'm going to guess, depending on how the fall works out, we're going to be well over that 16,000 acre mark. One of the things with last year on private lands, we had 37 burns on 659 acres. So we are getting burns on private land, not what we're looking for yet. We're hoping that number really starts to increase as we move throughout the next couple of years here. As far as 25, we had a really active fire season. It was well above our normal average. We had over 1,500 wildfires that were reported, and burned a little over 5,500 acres. Some of those got a little bit larger, where we actually needed some of our incident management team was out on 2 of those fires. So it was a busy spring year. And, the good news with that is we had a very busy fire season, but we managed to put a lot of fire on the ground, even though we had a busy fire season. Next slide, please. As far as what the council's been busy at, you can look here, you're going to see we have a very active training and outreach work groups. So they're very busy putting on lots of trainings and outreach throughout the year. Some of the things listed here, our annual meeting, that's our big moneymaker for our council. It's been the past few years, it's been both virtually and in person. The last 2 years, we put it in person just because we're having lots of issues with the virtual side of things, and still managed to have a real big turnout at it. Last year, our last meeting was in February. We had around 270 people there. So it was a pretty good in-person meeting that we had for that. Some of the tours we put on, we try to have at least 2 tours a year. One of them was yesterday that we put on in conjunction with this. We actually had over 90 people attend that, so it was a very good turnout in the southeastern part of the state, where the Game Commission showed us some good work that they're doing on some of their game lands in that area. As far as our certified burn manager program, our third class is coming up in October that we're going to be teaching. We're moving along with it. We're learning things every class. We're trying to switch things up and make it better for the students. And we put a lot of students through it, but it takes them a bit of time after they go through the class to actually become a certified burn manager. So right now we're sitting at 12 people that are certified, and we have a couple that are close to working through that task book process that are probably one burn away from getting signed off and being certified. So they're slowly working their way through their task books. Some of the other things we've done in the last year, we had a plan writing workshop, and that was something that was geared towards pretty much everybody. It wasn't an NWC course. We just geared it towards private landowners and some of our practitioners that just wanted some more help with burn plan writing. We also hosted a Learn and Burn. That was kind of in conjunction with the Game Commission had a fire festival. So got some people out there to look at. We even got some of our certified burn managers there to look at some of the different burns that have been done down in that area where the festival was held. As far as some of the trainings that we have coming up here, we have a couple federal courses, the 219, the 290, and fire behavior modeling workshop, which we're going to try to tailor that towards working through Behave 7 and Blue Sky smoke modeling. And this is kind of both, all these classes are targeting everybody. So if a private landowner wants to take it, like the 290, they don't have the prerequisites, we're going to waive that just so these people can get some training and learn some of these different things with fire. So we're not going to exclude all the private side of people who don't have all the prerequisites that are there. So we kind of want to target some of the landowners as we move, private landowners, as we move through the some of our classes from here on. Next slide, please. You bump it ahead to the next slide. Okay. I have a picture here of the Ignis. We talked about the Ignis drone. Currently within the state, we have 7 of them right now. The Game Commission has 1 in each of their 6 regions. DCNR has 1. We're in the process of getting a second one. These are really game changers in the prescribed fire realm. It's making things a lot easier. As a burn boss, it makes it, your comfort level goes way up when you have the drone flying through the unit instead of having people dragging grip torches through some of these real thick units where somebody would get hurt. So from a safety standpoint, they're really good to have, and they're very efficient. You can get the burns done a lot quicker. They're just all the drones are just game changers. So if you can get a hold of one, they're very expensive, but they really do help out with burning. Picture on the upper right there, that's our website. We just changed our host for our website, and it's a lot more user-friendly now. It's on a platform that our people can actually go in and they can make some of the changes, where in the past we had to get a hold of the webmaster and pay them, and it was just took things a long time. It was kind of clunky. So we moved on where a lot of our people on our board now, they can actually get in there and change things a lot quicker. So makes it user-friendly, and it gets hit pretty often. A lot of people do actually look at our website. And then the bottom left there, that's the Pocono Prescribed Burn Association. This is something that's new. This came out of the Pocono Wildlife Foundation that was created for up in our northeastern part of the state. And it's a land stewardship organization that's working with private landowners and some of the partners that are involved. It's a result of some of the bigger hunting clubs that we have up in that area. There's a few real spark plugs that are movers and shakers, and they're really getting things done. They created the foundation real quick, and then they had talked to me about the Burn Association, and they actually got that up and running like within a couple months. So it's, like I said, movers and shakers, and I'm real excited to see what comes of that. It's going to be a real good model, I think, as we move down the road to get some more prescribed burn associations in Pennsylvania. And I'm real excited to what this spring's going to bring with them. So they're going to get a lot of stuff done for us, I believe. And finally, something else exciting news for us is DCNR just hired a private lands prescribed fire specialist that's going to be starting here, I believe, next week. And that's going to be focusing on the private side of things, working with the certified burn managers, helping shepherd them through the task book process and mentoring and just getting the whole program up to speed and running. So that's real exciting news for the state. I think things are going to move quickly in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Fantastic. Next up, we have Rhode Island. where red maple is their state tree and their state bird is actually the Rhode Island red domesticated bird. So, Patrick, it's all you. Take it away.
Great. Thanks so much, Neil. Yeah. Hey, folks. Pat McMeekin. I'm from the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management. So, in Rhode Island, we do not have a prescribed fire burn council. All burning is done in-house with our state forestry agency. That's the agency I work for. So in Rhode Island, everything's under the Department of Environmental Management, everything from air resources to marine fisheries to pollution, and of course, including forestry and fire. So that's kind of where we sit. So the fire program, we're a small group. For a long time, we're only 4 people, including myself. Just a couple of years ago, we got a 5th person. So, just 5 of us, we're small, but the mission of our fire program, you can read it there, provide leadership, training, and support to Rhode Island's communities to reduce the threats of property and natural resources from wildland fire and focus on minimizing the impact of event fires. So from that mission, we can pick out kind of 4 key areas that we work on. Leadership, the way we enact leadership is we kind of fill some of those more specialty roles on the fire line in Rhode Island. We bring the heavy equipment. More recently, we've been working with the Rhode Island National Guard to bring aircraft. And then, of course, some of those fire line leadership positions, we fill those slots. Training, I'm going to skip that for a second, but come back to it. Support, we have a support mission in Rhode Island. The primary firefighting force is the local fire departments. So we have a support mission. We have a hose program where we loan hose to the local fire departments and we maintain that hose for them. So that's a big lift for us. And then reduce threats. The way we did that for a long time was through strictly prevention, and that looked a lot like Smokey Bear programs. But more recently, that reduction of threats and that prevention mission has grown to include prescribed fire. So next slide, please. I skipped over training because I wanted to dedicate its own slide to training. We've been focusing really hard on training the last 4 years. And you can see we've been holding basic firefighter training, S-130, and the whole training suite that goes with it for the last 4 years. To this point, we're up around 75, 80 people we've trained. And if you recall, I mentioned our program's only 5 people. 5 people can't really do much in terms of prescribed fire. So we've been cross-training all these other folks from all those other divisions I mentioned. So in these pictures, there's wildlife biologists, there's air resource people, there's people from state parks. All those folks we bring in to be like an auxiliary firefighting force for us. And also mixed in there are a lot of local fire department people that we train up to. So that's our group that we've been utilizing for both wildland suppression and prescribed fire. Next slide, please. Here are our fire numbers. We've really been going at prescribed fire hard since 2022. And I say that in 2022 when they had 1 operation for 30 acres. But you can see the trend. We've been on an upward trend since then. Every year except last year. I think we've heard a lot about this last year. We had a significant blizzard that put snow on the ground for most of March. March is a big prescribed fire month for us. So this year we were behind. Hopefully next year we can make up some of those numbers. Next slide, please. Like many of you, these are just some of the reasons that we burn. Fuels reduction. I really like these 2 pictures before and after. This is the same day. This was on Prudence Island. It's an island community where we do a lot of prescribed fire. This was 3 to 4 foot high greenbrier, impenetrable greenbrier. Couldn't get through it. The local folks tried mowing it with the big giant tractors. Nothing can get through it. So fire's the tool to use in that instance. So fuels reduction work. Maintenance, we have a fair amount of pitch pine barrens in the state, so we're utilizing fire to maintain those ecosystems. A lot of grasslands that we burn, and then that bottom picture, that's native lupin that came up after a couple burns we did. So we're helping to support T&E species. of course, native lupin helps endangered pollinator plants. Next slide there. So I think the take-home message for us, we've been a small program for a long time. We've been working on growing both our suppression and our prescribed fire. A lot of the same people do both. I think the take-home message here is we've been focusing on our people the last couple of years. We've held a lot of S-130 trainings. We're getting new folks interested in fire, involved in fire. We're getting a lot of people really excited about fire, which is great. These are a bunch of new firefighter twos that we've trained up. Our next steps, we really got to start moving towards the next level. We need to start getting firefighter ones, single resource bosses to help keep this program growing. That's it for Rhode Island. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. That was fantastic. Next up, we have the Green Mountain State of Vermont, where, of course, sugar maple is their state tree, and their state bird is the hermit thrush, one of my favorites. One of the best things to hear in the woods, the hermit thrush. And with us, we got Robert Golding, giving us a summary of what's happening in Vermont. Hey, Robert.
Morning. Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm over here on the West Coast in Oregon right now, coming to you. So we've been helping with the lightning bus out here. So glad that I was able to jump on and help out. I am the Assistant Fire Management Officer on the Green Mountain and Finger Lakes. And yeah, we'll just go right into it on the next slide, please. So from year to year, we're steadily increasing our RX acres annually. This year, we were able to get 68 units for 1,243 acres. Unique thing about us is that we're only a 7-person group that manages the prescribed fire and wildfires for the forest. So there's not a lot of us. We have to depend on our neighbors and partners and help from our regional leadership to kind of accomplish these things, which we're very grateful for. The other thing is that, like, as you guys all know, in New England, it can be a little tricky trying to find those good, adequate burn days, right? And so with this, to pull off 68 units, we only had 14 burn days throughout the deal. So we kind of have this thing where we stack modules together and try to get a group of units available for each day so people can kind of hop from one to the other and really maximize the time that we do have to get burning done. Right now, we currently do a lot of like wildlife openings, early successional prescribed burning. And we're gonna, steadily start increasing into some larger units, maybe get into some oak burning here in the next couple of years, start working with drones. So we're very excited for what's going to happen in the future. With that, we have a very experienced and motivated fire program and staff with significant involvement and interest from our Ready Reserve, which is our dual duty kind of biologists, technicians that come in and help us locally. And then we've been getting steady increase of AD interest from year to year and signing more people up to help us that way. Another cool thing about the burns that we do is that with the units that we have, we're able to provide a lot of like training opportunities for people there. I know this year we were able to work with 5 RXB2s to work on their training. I think we had 8 different firing bosses working for us. We bring in Job Corps crews from throughout the nation. So crew boss training, firefighter 1 training. So a lot of units, a lot of moving parts, provides a pretty good training ground for people as they come in. Another good thing that we've, the successes that we've had is that we got through last summer, fall, with it being the driest summer in decades. First time that we went into restrictions on the Green Mountain National Forest. That was really good, working with our state partners and making sure that everybody was working together with Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, so that we were all on the same page as we went into the restrictions. Got through that and then had the successful spring. And we just look to continue to build partnerships with our state and local partners. Next slide, please. Like I mentioned before, small capacity, right? So we have to get creative. We have a great relationship with our regional leadership. They kind of allow us to use our buddy passes with friends out west to get them to come out and bring modules to help us. We have a great relationship with the Job Corps group and typically have 2 to 3 Job Corps crews that come out and help us throughout the spring. So just having those relationships and building on them and having the same people come back to help has really done a lot for us. Additionally, our partnership with the state of Vermont has provided a lot of help to us in not only prescribed burning, but in wildfires. We've had some folks from TNC that got to join us this year, and then of course our Ready Reserve and our AD firefighters that have come in to help. Some challenges that we've had, we're dealing with some of the Dodge engine models, finding that we're having mechanical and electrical issues, working through those so that we can still keep that engine maintained and helping locally, regionally, and then with the national effort. And then we continue to work with the White Mountain National Forest, who we share NECC with, and our compact, and try to how to navigate potential upcoming staffing pinch points here in the future. Next slide, please. Myself, I'm on the steering committee with the New York Prescribed Fire Council. Really excited to see that working, and was excited that you guys were able to get your first meeting yesterday, and bummed that I missed it. But really excited to have that coming into play. I'd like to see something like that happen in Vermont or New England in general, so that we have all the bases covered there. And then we're just going to keep increasing our partnerships. We're looking into ways that we can work with TNC within our compact, Job Corps, state of Vermont. Over the last 5 years, the relationships we've been building with them, and the state of New York. However, it seems that just several years ago, state of New York and ourselves, we got to burn together a lot more often, but now it seems that we're finding those same windows and both equally busy on those days. So it's becoming less and less, but it'd be fun to get back out there on one of the burns with them. One success story is that we worked with the Northlands Job Corps urban forestry program this year and got 5 or 6 of their students trained up with the 130-190 Guard School. And we have had them out on the engine out in Colorado helping with the national effort, and we'll have them out in Oregon. So that's really exciting that we've got some young kids really close by, interested in fire and able to help us. And then after that, our out vision, we're really looking to building our shelf stock for prescribed fire. We're looking at units in oak, pitch pine, red pine, doing it, working with the ecologists so that we're doing it just for ecological benefit and not necessarily tied to any of the timber units. So really excited, and just want to put a big thanks out there to our shared success with our partners, with the state, Job Corps, neighboring forests, the compact, and all the other national forests that come out and help us every year. So last slide. And there we go. Just another typical day burning out on the Green Mountains. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate the chance to speak with you.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. Next up, we have West Virginia, Michelle Faraday. And in West Virginia, another state with sugar maple and northern cardinal, the last state in the cardinal belt.
All right, well, it's officially afternoon, so good afternoon, everyone. I go by Michelle O'Neill now. I work for the United States Wildland Fire Service as a fuel specialist, and I'm based out of New River Gorge National Park and Preserve. I wanted to give a brief summary of the collective prescribed burning accomplishments for the entire state of West Virginia. We had a total of 20 prescribed burns, and I pulled some data from Inform from August 1st, 2025 until about the end of June, showcasing that we had a total of 5,078 acres amongst all the different agencies. I did reach out to the Burn Boss Actuals, And they gave me a little more information that's slightly different from the informs. I'm going to state that now. Legacy NPS, National Park Service, had 1 burn at 37 acres. U.S. Forest Service had 6 burns at a total of 4,500 and for one season, and that was their highest acreage in that forest history, and that was Monongahela. DNR had 11 burns, a total of 150 acres. The Department of Forestry had 2 burns at 5 acres. I also wanted to mention that West Virginia does have a prescribed fire council. We began our efforts in 2022, and we are currently working on creating a burn manager curriculum. And we also are in the process of creating our own council website. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully we'll be a little more visible. Next slide, please. Today, I would like to highlight a very successful program that my home unit has been involved with over the past 4 years. It is a partnership between the Legacy National Park Service and Conservation Legacy with a tier regional organization called Appalachian Conservation Corps, or ACC, that focuses on the Appalachian region. In 2022, we hosted the first ever East Coast All Veterans Fuels Crew. The following years, we continued to host all veterans crews while adding an all-women's SAW crew in 2025. We as a host agency agreed to provide a basic wildland firefighting training and be issued IQCS cards and be qualified as firefighter type 2s. S112 Intro to Chainsaw Operations also is offered and a requirement for the program. Depending on the availability of instructors and interest, we also offer other NWCG courses such as 211, 219, 290. We cater additional training and opportunities based on each Corps member's interest. ACC crew members have received training or exposure with resume building. We always include that one. We also have mental wellness courses, career days with professionals across various land management agencies, hands-on training with fire ecology crews during monitoring and the installation of new burn plots, burn plan writing workshops, and fire weather and behavior courses. We will bring in our local meteorologist to help with that portion, so that's always a treat. These are just a few of what has been offered. The sky truly is the limit. As you can see, the program is focused on development and learning. The other critical component of this program is for the participants to gain practical experience in fuels management. Burn preparation and implementation is at the crux of this 4-month-long period. Without the ACC crew's assistance, it would be such a challenge, if not impossible, to burn some of our larger units. Each season, the ACC crews also accomplish acres upon acres of mechanical treatments, usually involving fuel treatments around historical structures throughout our region. We have been known to also go up to places like Cape Cod or over to Kentucky to assist with prescribed burns. Now, during these prescribed burns, we pair the Corps members with qualified personnel during ignitions, holding and while performing other key roles. ACC members learn about the roles of burn boss, firing boss, FEMO duties, how to observe, record, and deliver weather observations over the radio. They learn how to serve as lookouts. They shadow resource advisors, UTV operators, engine operators, etc. During each instant or treatment, we ensure that all participants who wish to gain experience in various positions can by switching them around throughout the operational period. Since the ACC Corps members are qualified firefighter 2s, yes, they do get to respond to any wildland fires in our area. We incorporate them into our force as AD hires, so they get a little more compensation than just their stipend. Change the next slide, please. As you can see by looking at some of the quotes I've put up on the screen, the crew members truly are most excited when they have the equipment in their hands and they are applying the concepts that we have taught them in the classroom. The burn coordinator in one of the quotes highlights how valuable it was to have the ACC veterans crew in his organizational chart, but he also mentioned just how much it meant to him on a personal side of things that to give back to a fellow veteran. Change the slide 4, please. Some of the most surprising and rewarding parts for me as the lead coordinator of the agency side is that participants who finish the program are hooked on the concept of good land management. They are fired up about how they can, and they want to know how they can continue this overall mission. In fact, over the past 4 years, with 4 separate crews, close to 100% of the graduating ACC participants were hired into land management or closely related positions. Multiple Corps members immediately took positions as forestry technicians. We hired 2 on our unit, one who just completed the apprenticeship program with us. A few went out to be part of hotshot crews, and we had one join as an interpretive ranger for the park. Starting with the first season and then every season after, an ACC Corps member has returned to serve as a lead crew member. So there has been a lot of retention to this program. In closing, I wanted to mention that both the Conservation Legacy All Veterans ACC crews and the All Women's SAW crew have been a complete win-win for everyone involved. Much needed work is accomplished, career development is gained, networking and job placement occurs, and both the Conservation Legacy and the partnering agency get to provide that stepping stone that veterans and young adults may not get any other way. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. We have 2 presentations left. Wisconsin is next, and Jeb Barzin is presenting for the state of Wisconsin, who also has sugar maple as their state tree and the American robin as their state bird. Good morning, Jeb, or afternoon now. It's all you.
Well, it's morning for us still, so.
Good deal.
Go figure.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for presenting.
Thank you, Neil. So the Fire Council, just to kind of, I hope that as the last state speaking today, I hope you hear lots of echoes with many of the other excellent presentations that we've seen today. We have our fire needs assessment for Wisconsin estimates that we should be burning 1 million acres per year. And we are currently burning about 75,000 acres per year. So the gap between where we are and where we should be is large. And for us, the important part of that context is that the longer it takes us, we do not live in a static world. We live in a very dynamic world where change continues, whether we do something or not. And what that means for prescribed fire is the longer it takes us to get good fire on the ground safely and effectively, the more we lose. So we lose species, we lose ecological services, and we have used that framework or that context to really challenge ourselves. And so we've set for the Fire Council to enable our increase of prescribed burning from our current 75,000 acres per year to 500,000 acres per year within 10 years, basically by 2034. Now, this might seem like an audacious goal. It's certainly not a goal that the Fire Council alone can do, but we want to enable the state to be able to reach that goal. And it's not so important whether we get to exactly 500,000 acres, but what it is really doing is trying to help keep us focused on what we really want to accomplish and therefore how we're going to accomplish it. And so that's the context for this presentation. Next slide, please. So our actions to try to take that into consideration or to reach that audacious goal is the Fire Council was formed in 2003. We are basically a volunteer-run organization throughout at that time, so we were very much a grassroots organization. But we see that as moving to an all-roots organization, meaning all kinds of different audiences, not just volunteers. And so within 2 weeks, we will be welcoming our first executive director as a full-time staff, and we have several other part-time staffs with our organization. But we also have lots of volunteers who are integral to us getting work done on the ground. So moving from an all volunteer organization to a mixture of staff and volunteers is crucial to our ability to dramatically increase our capacity. But we're also trying to move from, professionals to non-professionals to include that whole gamut of people engaged in in prescribed fire, from NGOs to individuals, from crew members to burn bosses, the whole realm of experiences, and for participants to audiences. So we're reaching out to the public, but we're also trying to engage as many people in prescribed fire as we can. We are very much trying to increase our prescribed fire burn capacity. So in 2025 to 2026, we've trained 230, we directly have trained 230 crew members, 46 squad bosses, and 28 burn bosses. And just to kind of put this into context, we estimate in order to get to 500,000 acres a year, we need to, in Wisconsin, be cranking out over 500 crew members per year, over 100 squad bosses per year, and 50 new burn bosses per year. So when you look at these training efforts, we're proud of where we've gotten to and that we can accomplish this all within a 1-year period, but we're still under what we need to be producing if we're going to be able to expand and have the people available to expand that prescribed burn effort in a significant way. So we're doing well, but we're not there yet. We've also launched a joint certification program. We've currently certified 9 prescribed burn bosses in this, our first year, 2026. And we have another 5 that probably will be certified by the end of 2026. So our inaugural year is about 14 certified prescribed burners. Next slide, please. But we're really also trying to empower communities in a broad way. So we're trying to create a third space for collaboration, not just a government versus public, but we're trying to engage in that whole continuum and representing that whole continuum by putting some spots in the middle of that continuum. And what I mean by that is we're reaching out, and as other states are doing, we're trying to form prescribed burn associations, which are formed by private landowners primarily and serving private landowners. And Wisconsin is 85% privately owned land. And so if we're going to reach some of these audacious goals, we can't do it without engaging significantly our private landowners. And so these prescribed burn associations will be key to what we want to try to accomplish. We're also doing outreach with our public TV and radio. We've done presentations to lots of different groups, and certainly we can do more. But most importantly was we're trying to include a full spectrum of training philosophies. National Wildfire Coordinating Group is a great training tool that you've heard many organizations and state agencies including, but we also are trying to develop our own training curricula that meets more specific audiences, and especially private landowners, because NWCG is inherently sort of based for the needs that are important for public agencies, but they're not necessarily as adapt to fitting the needs for private landowners. Said another way, it's a lot easier to train a private landowner on how to burn their 40 acres than it is to train somebody to burn throughout the state of Wisconsin and all the various ecosystems that exist. And so we're trying to get that full spectrum of training philosophies and apply them to many of the participants who would like them. And as you've heard today, lots of partnerships are critical to what we need to accomplish. We're working with the Red Cliff Band of Ojibwe to include them in our burn boss trainings, and as many others have done, inform our burn boss trainings as well. So it's a true partnership of give and take for both of the sides. We're working with other fire councils in our Midwestern region. We cooperated with Minnesota to do a joint meeting in 2026 in January. We've also worked with Michigan Prescribed Fire Council, and we've actually stole their ideas for burning issues and are doing something similar to Wisconsin. So we appreciate their contribution to us. And we've worked with our Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. We have an MOU now, and we've developed the certification program, and we're assisting with the dashboard program that is there. And great partnerships are ways that you can complement the work that others are doing. Finally, we've got 4 Wisconsin universities and lots of NGOs that we're working with, and we'll go to the next slide. The bottom line is we, and I mean now for all of us in the Northeast Midwest region, we all are situated where we need to up our game wherever we live, however we can, and time really matters. The longer it takes us to achieve this objective or this big goal that we all face, the more we're going to lose. So more safe, effective fire is our collective goal, and this is just one example of how Wisconsin is engaging. Thank you.
Outstanding example. Thank you, Jeb. Appreciate you joining us. And last up, while we don't have slides, we do have a discussion of what the coalition has been up to. Daryl Jones from the Coalition of Prescribed Fire Councils is joining us now. And Daryl, you have the floor.
All right. Thank you, Neil. I didn't know if you'd be prepared, but just to follow suit, I'm from South Carolina, and our state tree is the sable palmetto, and our state bird is the Carolina wren. So there's your tidbit for today. I am here to talk a little bit about the coalition, and I hope you are familiar with it, all of you. But if you're not, I'd like to talk a little bit about how we got here and kind of what we're trying to do. I'm the fire chief for the South Carolina Forestry Commission, but I am on the board for the National Coalition of Prescribed Fire Councils. I'm the current chair. And the coalition, if you aren't familiar, the idea started in about 2006. Mark Melvin, who was a prescribed burner at the Jones Ecological Center in Georgia, was pretty engaged with other folks about some changes to the National Ambient Air Quality Standards that were proposed or being discussed, and realized that it needed to be maybe talked about on a larger format with other groups. So he, being involved in Georgia, started the discussions and had the idea to bring a group together and talk about issues, and building that on some prior success. I'll go backwards. The first Prescribed Fire Council we know about was South Florida in 1975, and that was sort of tied to the Everglades, really just to share and increase coordination. The North Florida Prescribed Fire Council started in 1989, and by 2006, there were 5 states in the Southeast: South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, and a couple others that had councils. And they had a stakeholder meeting. I was at that with Mark, and we talked about the issues that I think all of us have talked about today: the liability, the training, safety, smoke management, and how all that, plays into the national standards. And really, the coalition was formed back then. It didn't formally get recognized till about 2009 when the charter was made, and we set it up as a 501c3. So there is a mission we have, and I'll start there again. The mission really is to promote the appropriate use of prescribed fire and enhance public safety, managing resources, and sustaining the environmental quality. Our role really is to support states and councils, and really that translates to us being a resource for councils that are new councils forming, and maybe ways we can help or share info. Councils that are struggling, we've seen, and I think some of you have seen, that a council starts and does a lot of great stuff, and then maybe some personnel change or rules change or something, and they lose some of their momentum. And we've helped several councils refocus on that, or maybe provided some insight to how to sustain them. And then we like to serve as a platform to share information and maybe to get the council leadership together. Earlier today, there was a meeting of the councils in the Southeast, a web meeting, and we've held a couple of forums at Association of Fire Ecology conferences and other venues to have an opportunity for councils to meet and just talk about lessons learned, or what may be working, or what what isn't working. So we do have a board, and I'll say that because we do have some vacancies coming up. And if you're interested, I think somebody said earlier, if you want to be involved, we have opportunities coming up. But there are 9 members on the board right now. We have representation. A couple were here today, Jack McGowan Stinsky and Todd Brandinger. But the representatives are Pennsylvania Department of Conservation, Oregon Department of Forestry, South Carolina Forestry Commission, University of Florida, Colorado State, Texas A&M Natural Resource Institute, Oklahoma State, NRCS, and USDA Forest Service have some advisors, liaisons. Pete Long for Smoke, and NRCS, we have some contacts. So we do serve as a resource as a council needs examples of bylaws, for example, and maybe ways other councils are organized. We try and keep up with what states have councils and where they are working on them. And right now there's over 40 councils that are existing. There are several states that are in process of developing councils, and there are several that don't have it for different reasons that have tried and lost organizational status or something and are trying to come back. So our main output outside of helping councils directly is the National Prescribed Fire Use and Survey Report that we've done since 2012. And it started out really as the first place where the coalition, in conjunction with the National Association of State Foresters, reached out and got statewide data as much as we could and put that into a document showcasing nationwide where prescribed fire is happening and how much each state's doing. And we reported it regionally by state foresters regions, so the Southeast, Northeast, Midwest, and the West. We have not yet done it at a state level. We were trying to keep it broad based on the state foresters regions. But the first place really that all that data was brought together, put into context maybe, and we've done that every 3 years or so since then. We've been collecting data annually, but generating a report every 3 years. We're working now in very short order. You'll see the report current up through 2023. Our last one came out in 2021. We'll put out one here shortly. It's in the editing and finishing the graphics now. But that report has gotten a lot of traction. The EPA refers to it, other places do. We also, in that report, try to ask some questions about what are the hindrances, what agency is the permitting agency, if there is one. We ask general questions. What are the barriers, and that's liability and capacity and smoke and emissions concerns. So we're trying to capture some of that data. And now, since 2012, when the first report came out, many other groups are doing this. It's a lot different playing field than 2012. So we're trying to adjust the report accordingly. The main thing I wanted to get across, though, is we are here as a resource to you. If you have a council and you want some input or someone to talk about it and help you, and we do try, and as the air quality standards change, provide some language maybe for letters that you can send to EPA or state air agency from a broader perspective. And we also spend a lot of time writing letters of support for councils that are seeking grant funding, and we support some projects, National Science Foundation, other projects that we think are beneficial to us as a burning community. So I really don't have a lot more specific, but I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of what the coalition is here for, that we are a resource, and we do have prescribedfire.net as our website, and we're working on a way to do that better and have a more current website. But reach out there, reach out to me directly or any of our other board members, and we can try and get you some information and help however we can to sustain the councils and maintain the councils that are out there. So I'll leave it at that, Neil.
Right. Thanks, Daryl. That's fantastic. And I will be following up with you as the newly selected chair of the Prescribed Fire Council in New York.
Excellent.
So I have
Yes,
a number of questions and could definitely use some help. So I'll be following up on that. Thank you so much for joining us today and wrapping up the presentations.
Thank you.
With that, I'm going to bring our workshop to a close. And first of all, I need to thank all of our presenters today. It was fantastic that despite lots of other things going on, not the least of which are wildfires that need to be responded to, we had all 20 states and Canada represented this morning. So thank you to all of our presenters, and thank you to all of you for joining us, not just for today, but hopefully you had a good day yesterday on either a field trip or in the online virtual sessions, and of course for joining us Monday. Before we leave, I just wanted to call on all of our committee members to turn on their cameras so we can give them all a tremendous debt of thanks for the work over the last year to pull the workshop together. That's Jack McGowan-Stinsky from Minnesota, Gary Warner from Wisconsin, Polly Wiegand from New York with the Forest Stewards Guild, Paul Charlin from TPOS, myself, Zach Pruzak and Ron Guy from Tall Timbers, if you guys are out there, Karen Caljo and Alex Bloat from Massachusetts, Eric Everson from the North Atlantic Fire Science Exchange, and Amanda Ferris. There you are, Amanda. So it looks like not everybody's going to turn their cameras on, but this has been a tremendous team effort, and it's always a lot of work each year, but one of the highlights of that year is getting to work with all of you. So thanks for all of your effort in pulling this together. Appreciate you all. And especially, we would be remiss if we did not thank Michael Robinson from Full Scope. Michael has been behind the scenes from the beginning and helping manage all the tech today, but so much more. The website, the announcements, save the dates, you name it, she's done it. Thank you tremendously to Michael. Thanks for joining us. And there is a survey. There will be a pop-up survey, but you may also see a post workshop survey. Please give us your feedback. One of the questions we have in particular is every year, every other year, continue a blended experience or get back to in person. One of the things we all noted yesterday on the field trips, it's really nice to be back together again as a group, sharing ideas out in the field where we look at trees and think about burning some stuff. So thank you all. With that, Michael, I will hand it back to you to close out and end the workshop.